Welcome everybody to this special meeting of Council. This meeting is called for the specific purpose to consider the staff report and to decide on Council action with regards to Hurontario Main Street Light Rapid Transit. Under Council's meeting rules, no other business will be considered at the special meeting. All members of Council are present this evening. I just want to remind everybody, if you could make sure that your cell phones or your other electronic devices are turned off or placed in a non-audible mode during the meeting, that would be helpful. Mr. Clerk, do we have a motion? We have a motion moved by Councillor Pelleshi, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that the agenda for the special council meeting of July 8th be approved as printed and as is circulated. All in favor of the motion? All opposed? That's carried. Does any member have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act or any other matter to be considered on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk. So before we as a council hear from the public on this matter and consider the staff report, which is E1, I would ask first that Ms. Marilyn Ball, our Acting Chief Administrative Officer, provide opening remarks about this evening's meeting, purpose and context. Secondly, that staff provide their presentation, which is D1. This order of staff presentation followed by the public delegation is permitted by the procedural bylaw, section 4.5, clause 6C. After Ms. Ball's introduction and the staff presentation, I would ask that as council we hold our questions in order to allow as much time as possible for our delegations. Staff will be here after the delegations and will be responding to council questions at that point in time. And then we will proceed with deliberations. After hearing from the public, council will then ask its questions of staff. We will consider the report and make our decision. Please note this is the same process we followed in this previous special council meetings. Chief Ball.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and good evening, Madam Mayor, members of Council, and members of the public. Council has before it this evening a staff report with a recommendation which was referred to this meeting from our June 22nd Planning and Infrastructure Services Committee meeting. This evening is an opportunity to hear from the public on the proposed LRT and for Council to make a decision, and a decision that could be transformational for the city. Tonight, when City Council makes a decision on the LRT, it will set the stage for the future of our city, the future of the downtown, and it will also set the stage for future decisions that this council will be making and councils into the future. As some background, in September 2014, the previous council directed city staff to not study any further the provincially approved alignment for an LRT which extended from Mississauga up to the downtown Brampton GO station, but instead to report back on studies for alternatives to that alignment, alternatives both north of Steeles and north of Nanwood, and stated that council would not make a commitment to construction of an LRT until council had made a final decision on an alignment. Further, council stated that it was a priority that the Main Street LRT alignment continue north to the city's northern boundary. And as we know, an extension further north to the northern boundary of Brampton is included in the province's Metrolink's Big Move strategic plan for transit. On June 22nd, your resolution requested that staff and Metrolinks provide answers to a number of questions. These answers are found in your agenda. There is an addendum to our June 22nd agenda report from city staff. There is also in your agenda a response from Metrolinks to a number of questions that were posed to them. So this evening, staff is going to provide a presentation that provides context around land use planning. It provides some context around the ridership along the alignments and the key findings from the study of the alternatives. So before I turn it over to staff for a presentation, I want to introduce some key individuals that are in the audience this evening and available to assist with questions and as you get into the debate. From Metrolinx, we have Bruce McQuaig, President and CEO. Leslie Wu, Vice President, Policy Planning and Innovation. Fausto Natarelli, Director of the Hurontario Main LRT Project, the Capital Projects Group. Jamie Robinson, Director of Communications and Community Relations for the Capital Projects Group at Metrolinx. Also, as part of the consulting team who were involved in the alternative alignments exercise and the LRT study are Chris McCarthy, Project Manager for the HMLRT, and Trevor Branham, Deputy Project Manager for HMLRT, both with SNC Lavalin Incorporated. So with that, Madam Mayor, I'm going to turn the floor over to staff to provide a presentation. We're going to be starting with Heather McDonald on the planning and land use context. Sue Connor will be providing some context around transit ridership. And then finally, Chris Diveston will be providing you an overview on the alignments, the outcomes of that study that was undertaken. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. Through the discussions to date on the LRT, some of the questions have been related to whether there is a vision for our downtown. We do know what we want our downtown to be. Downtown Brampton is already a very special place. It is not just another created GTA city center. It is a long-established node. And we want to build on what is already a great place. We want it to be connected, vibrant, attractive, an accessible place where people can come to live, to work, and learn, stop in, or come as a destination to shop, have dinner, go to the theater, or a concert in the park, or gather for events or markets. We want it to be a place where businesses thrive, our natural environment is recognized, and our cultural heritage is celebrated. We really want to create an attractive and welcoming public realm. Council has put land use policies and zoning provisions in place to allow for and facilitate intensification of mixed-use development, including residential, office, and retail commercial uses, and the location of a downtown mobility hub at the Brampton GO station. Based on what is permitted by the official plan policies and zoning provisions that are in place, the population for the downtown is projected to increase from 11,920 to 21,600 by 2031, and the number of jobs in the downtown from 5,900 to 9,800 by 2031. We have design guidelines to articulate the vision for the downtown and programs in place to encourage investment. Council has established the Office for the Central Area to focus on attracting new businesses and assisting existing ones. All of this work to position the downtown to grow and prosper has not gone unnoticed. The province has approved changes to the downtown environmental special policy area policies to allow for more development in the downtown. The growth plan designates downtown as an urban growth center, and the Big Move Transit Plan designates it as a mobility hub. The province is committed to investing in increased GO service and the LRT. Brampton not only has a vision for its downtown, we have never been in a better place to realize it. I'm now going to have Sue Connor come, and she's going to speak to information on ridership.
Thanks, Heather. Okay, I just wanted to start with this slide, and this slide is the original slide from the 2004 Council-approved Transportation and Transit Master Plan, which was the first plan which has since been updated in 2009 and is currently going through an update. We started with this slide lobbying for funding after the TTMP was approved by council, and our first ask of the federal and provincial governments was to look at the link in the downtown, moving people east on Queen Street to the Vaughan Corporate Center, where the subway would be eventually extended, and then south on Main Street to connect with Mississauga. We really, in those early days, were really stressing the importance of that critical link in the downtown for this whole plan. We eventually, through all the years, the years of funding lobbying, we finally ended up being encouraged to expand for all of the bus rapid transit service that was identified in the original TTMP. And this is a plan, this is a map of what is currently either put in service or to be put in service. Everything at this point except for the Steeles West extension, which is going in this fall, and the Queen West extension, west on Queen and up to Mount Pleasant GO Station, which will be put in the fall of 2016. Now, this service is all what we call BRT Lite, which is the precursor to more advanced technologies in rapid transit. So this slide here just illustrates how we plan for rapid transit. First, we were running conventional transit. Then we moved on some of the corridors to BRT Lite. Those are the Zoom corridors. As the ridership and the intensification on those corridors move forward and grow, then evaluation is done whether BRT and dedicated corridors or potentially LRT is warranted on those corridors. This slide just illustrates the ridership growth we've seen on those 4 Zoom corridors that are in service. As you can see, Ontario since 2011, when we launched that service, has increased by 119%. Now, it's important to note that those are only Brampton boardings shown in this slide. They do not include the boardings that Mississauga has during the section between the Mississauga Transit Terminal and the Gateway Terminal. We operate an integrated service with them, so it's kind of equal service. They run express service, we run Zoom, and we both run local service on that corridor that meets at the 407. This slide just illustrates for you the travel time on Zoom service right now compared to what the projected travel time is on LRT, the HM LRT. Now, those travel times with conventional buses, the BRT buses running in mixed traffic, will continue to get worse and worse. The one thing that definitely brings new riders to transit is travel time. So it's something that we're always very focused on, and one thing that makes a big difference in terms of new ridership and ridership growth is travel time on a corridor. This final slide just illustrates the number of boardings. Our weekly ridership on the Huron-Ontario corridor is 14,050 boardings daily. There's a breakdown here. 68% of those boardings are from the Mississauga Transit Terminal to downtown Brampton. Of those from the Mississauga Terminal to Derry, it's about 2,800 boardings. From Derry to Steeles, it's about 2,800. And from Steeles to downtown, we currently have almost 4,000 boardings. North of Sandalwood, it's 32%, which is about 4,500 boardings. Our anticipated growth along the Huron-Ontario main corridor is between 5 to 10% each year moving forward. Then in the downtown terminal, to give you an idea, we're more than doubled the number of passenger movements we've seen through that terminal since we launched Zoom in 2010. One thing important to note about the growth on this corridor, that if LRT ends at Steeles, we are anticipating we'll have to run an additional 47 articulated buses on that corridor in the AM rush hour to accommodate the passenger movement. As I've been here a number of times recently, telling you about our capacity issues and the challenges we face, we're only projecting those challenges to grow even more in the future. So with that, I will pass it on to Chris Divison, Project Manager.
So this map shows 8 alternative alignments, with 2 alternatives having sub-options for a total of 11 options. Now, at committee on June 22nd, there was some discussion about 3 alternatives in particular, There is the tunnel option, the Etobicoke Creek Valley option, and the Steeles Kennedy Queen option east of Main Street. So I'm going to discuss each of these options in further detail on the next few slides. So for the tunnel option, the stretch from Steeles to north of Algon is a surface route. The tunnel begins just south of Nanwood, staying within the existing Main Street right-of-way into the downtown. Underground stops are located at Nanwood, Wellington, and the Brampton GO station. And this option has a travel time savings of 3 minutes. However, it has the highest additional cost of $350 million above the TPAP-approved surface route, which costs an additional $190 million for a total of $570 million for this option. And that $570 million is at Brampton's cost. It's important also to note that the further soils and groundwater investigations are required, especially given the Etobicoke Creek used to pass through downtown. So as a result, the cost of $570 million may be higher if poor soil conditions are present. Also, depending on the method of tunnel construction impacts will be significant, with large pits required at the start and end points of the tunnel, which are typically a couple hundred meters long, as well as major impacts at station locations. Tunnel construction could also take up to 4 to 5.5 years to complete. So this option here follows the Etobicoke Creek Valley to the north, up to Queen and along the CN tracks. It considered both a surface and elevated alignment. However, there are prohibiting legislation, as Etobicoke Creek is a regulatory floodplain. This option also compromises flooding solutions in downtown. The flooding solutions are trying to improve flows along Etobicoke Creek, while this option will actually impede the flows. This option also impacts property, including parklands within the valley and along Center Street. And finally, this option has an additional cost of $61 million for the surface option through the valley and $172 million for the elevated option. Including the TPAP-approved surface route cost of $190 million, this equates to a surface route cost of $250 million and $360 million for the elevated route, which are at Brampton's cost. This option travels along Steeles, up Kennedy to the north, along Queen to the CN tracks and into the Brampton GO station. Steeles is a regional road, and it's one of only 3 continuous east-west goods movement corridors within Brampton. The next goods movement corridor to the north is Beauvais. So as a result, the region requires a widening of Steeles to accommodate the LRT, as Steeles is already heavily congested. The widening of Steeles requires half the length of the backyards of the 30 homes on the north side of Steeles, possibly requiring full buyouts. In addition, there are also partial widenings required and restricted access along Kennedy Road. And the travel time increases by approximately 4.5 minutes over the TPAP-approved surface route. This option also has an additional cost of $168 million above the TPAP-approved surface route, with a total of $360 million plus property costs. And again, this $360 million is at Brampton's costs. Finally, this option also duplicates future rapid transit along Queen and Steeles, which are both in Metrolinx's future plans. So based on the analysis of 4 professional engineering firms over the course of more than 7 years, and at a total project cost of $16.8 million, it has been determined that there are 2 feasible options for the LRT alignment north of Steeles Avenue that Council has before them to decide upon. The tunnel option or the TPAP-approved surface alignment. Both the tunnel option and the TPAP surface alignment will support downtown, including growth and development, economic development, the mobility hub at Brampton GO, Queen Street Rapid Transit, 2-way all-day GO rail service, a northern extension of the LRT in the future, as well as meeting future transit demands along the corridor. However, the tunnel does not meet the Metrolinx timelines for the project because additional time is required to undertake further studies, to revise the preliminary design, as well as undertake a TPAP amendment. It also increases the construction duration, which could be as long as 4 to 5.5 years, depending on the tunnel construction method. And finally, it costs $570 million to be paid by Brampton. The TPAP-approved surface route minimizes the construction duration in downtown to between 1 to 2 years of stage construction, and the construction is fully funded by the province. So comparing the additional cost of the tunnel option of $380 million and the total cost of $570 million, These tables show the equivalent cost to extend the LRT further north of downtown along Main Street and along Queen Street to the east. The top table is for the extension of the LRT on Main Street, and the bottom table is for the LRT on Queen Street. So for just under $380 million, the LRT could be extended north of the Brampton GO Station to Sandalwood along Main Street, as per the top table, or along Queen Street from the Brampton GO Station to the Brampton City Center Terminal, as per the bottom table. Similarly, the LRT could be extended north to Mayfield Road for $520 million, or along Queen Street to Airport Road for $600 million. So who pays for what? All property required for the project will be paid by Metrolinx, except city lands, which will require easements for Metrolinx. All utilities impacted will be paid by Metrolinx. However, any upgrades to city infrastructure will be at the city's costs. These infrastructure costs will be identified during the next phase of implementation and will be subject to council approval. There's also an opportunity to upgrade shelters, terminal, landscaping, urban design, or other enhancements, if desired by council, which would be at the city's costs. And finally, there's no increase in the winter maintenance of city roads. So it's still too early to define the actual operating costs until the procurement process is completed by Metrolinx. However, we have provided council with an estimate based on the business case analysis completed for the project. So the yearly operating cost of LRT is $28.9 million for the entire corridor in 2031. However, there are savings in bus operating costs and increased revenues for local transit that result in a net operating savings of $1.2 million overall. With 25% of the corridor, the operating costs within Brampton are $7.2 million. However, a portion of the operating costs will be recovered through fare revenues. Zoom currently recovers approximately 63% of its costs through fares. Typically, the higher the level of transit service, the higher the cost recovery ratio. Therefore, LRT is expected to be higher than Zoom in the future. However, we used a conservative estimate of 50% for the LRT, which resulted in net operating costs in Brampton of $3.6 million each year. And this equates to a 1% tax increase today. Now, the city could decide to use the savings in bus operating costs and increase local transit revenue to pay for the city's share of the operating costs. The Queen Street Rapid Transit Master Plan will develop alternative alignments and identify a preferred alignment and technology. Now, this plan shows a few potential alignments for Queen Street LRT coming to downtown, including two options that travel along Queen Street to either Main Street or George Street, and an option that parallels the CN tracks into the Brampton GO Station. Now, as part of the Huron-Ontario Main LRT project, it was determined that LRT for both Huron-Ontario Main and Queen Street could be accommodated at the Brampton GO Station, as well as a future extension to the north on Main Street. So in terms of next steps, Metrolinx will be taking the lead in the next phase of implementation, and they need a decision from Brampton to confirm the project scope of work. Thank you.
Thank you to staff for their three presentations. I have a motion from Councillor Fortini and seconded by Councillor Medeiros with regards to receiving the staff presentations. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Now for the delegations. Councillor Spovieri.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are we on? Okay. Madam Mayor, can I suggest, we have Karen Woodland from the TRCA here to present to council and to the public. And she, in my opinion, she could be considered a staff presentation in a sense, even though she's with TRCA, but she is, I believe, it has information that would be probably beneficial to everyone before they make comments for us to know. So I would move that we move Carolyn Woodland to present to us number one on the list.
Is that will of council? All those in favor? It's carried. Okay. So can I go through my list and then I'll come back to her? My speaking notes? That's good? That was all you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Okay, now for the delegations. We agreed we would hear from the public next, and we'll go to the representative from TRCA as a first delegation. We agreed we would hear from the public next, so we'll proceed with public delegations before council asks questions and consider the report recommendations. Before this agenda was published this past Friday, we received 42 delegation requests, including many of the delegations heard at Planning and Infrastructure Committee meetings. Today, 2 delegates have withdrawn their requests for tonight's meeting. Scott Goodison, I think he was number 29 on the list, and Mr. Peter Murphy, who was number 33. We will hear from the 42 delegations listed on the agenda. Secondly, we will receive delegations from those people who submitted delegation requests since the agenda was published. Council added 9 delegation requests to the agenda at the beginning of this meeting. The third group is new delegations from those attending tonight. After we hear from the delegations already registered, we will invite anyone else to present if they wish to speak. For all public delegations this evening, each of you will be given 5 minutes to speak. This is to ensure that everyone who wants to speak will have a chance to address council. The clock will be running in front of you at the podium to let you know how much time that you have used. At this meeting, due to the large number of people wanting to speak, I ask the council agree not to grant any time extensions to any delegation. The procedural bylaw states that a delegation should be limited to speaking not more than 5 minutes. At 5 minutes each, we have approximately 5 hours ahead of us. Does council agree with this recommendation? All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, delegations, when you come forward, please state your name at the beginning so that the city can include it in the meeting record. Please focus on the subject matter, the LRT, its route, as this is the purpose of tonight's meeting, and please remember that we're all here to build a better Brampton. So I would ask our first delegation, Carolyn Woodland, Senior Director, Planning, Green Space, Communications, Toronto and Regional Conservation. Come forward. Yeah. You have 5 minutes.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, I think I'm getting a process question before you begin. Councillor Pelletier.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand that the volume is not on downstairs, with a lot of people not being able to hear anything. Can I just make sure that that's fixed now, that's rectified? And is there an opportunity where anything that they missed can be provided to them by somebody?
I think your message has been heard, and the clerk's department is going to follow up on that. Okay. Councillor Bowman.
Again, Madam Mayor, I would like to, after all the delegations, I would like to go on record as being the first to ask questions, since it is mostly in Ward 3, so I would like to cover that off. Thank you.
So, Ms. Woodland, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Your worship and members of council, thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I've been asked to really provide some information and background on the flood issues in the downtown relative to the LRT proposal. And just as a little bit of a background, TRCA has had a long involvement with staff on some of these issues. We reviewed the Hurontario Main Street Master Plan in 2011. We had some input on 2012 pre-transit study. We've also been involved and chatted about the informal submission of the Etobicoke Creek Valley alignment in 2012, and then your environmental project report that came forward on the LRT options and the preferred alignment. Our position has been fairly clear about our concerns about any kind of preferred alignment and those that are flood vulnerable. And I just also want to mention that we've been working with Downtown Brampton and staff on the SPA, comprehensive SPA update since 2006. Flood remediation study for Etobicoke Creek through the downtown, and also the revitalization study. So after all these years of looking at risk in the downtown and how redevelopment and revitalization may occur, we're quite pleased that in 2014, we have two ministers' approval of the SPA update. I've brought this map here this evening just to show, pardon me, the flood-prone areas and the regulated areas in the downtown. And you'll see this is Etobicoke Creek, and is this a pointer here? Pointer. Yeah. This one here? The area on the left-hand side, we're looking north now in the downtown, is the SPA for the downtown Brampton, and that's the work that we've done with staff to look at all the land uses and flood risk assessment within the downtown, and we're looking at balanced, modest growth within that downtown core. We've had extensive work with staff on where should growth more safely be located and how should that risk be managed through emergency planning in the downtown as well. We are looking at a new area out on the red areas that are on the right-hand side of the map down at Nanwood Drive and what we call the Bram East SPA. And so a terms of reference is also being developed with staff right now in the province to look at the flood risk in these areas. But essentially you'll see on the map the yellow line, which has been indicated going up the valley, is the alternative of the LRT that is proposed up Etobicoke Creek. And this alignment, in our opinion, is being proposed in the area of highest floodway, and is a great concern for us. So in our positioning and any work that we've been doing to date in any review, we felt quite strongly that both from a regulatory and provincial policy perspective, any kind of proposal of LRT going up the valley would not only just would not meet any kind of policy regime here, but would also have significant impacts to any kind of conveyance of flow and any kind of proposals for remediation that we've been working with through the SPA update. So it has been a concern for us. We believe that the alignment that is proposed on here, Ontario, has less constraints and a more workable and manageable approach to managing any risk on that alignment through emergency planning. So for us, the proposal going up the valley has been something that is seriously constrained in terms of any viable proposal.
Carolyn, do you have 30 seconds less to wrap up?
Okay, last one. I'll just say that the revitalization project for the downtown was very important in terms of visioning for the Etobicoke Creek, and we have some important proposals on the table for channel improvements, flood protection landform, and bridge improvements and so on, and we believe that this kind of proposal would complicate things.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Our next delegation is Councillor Spovieri. Do you have another process question?
Just a point of clarification.
What's your clarification? Yeah.
To Carolyn. Carolyn, if you could, you mentioned that the valley is fairly flood prone. What about the area just around the bridge on Main or the Brampton Mall, that particular area? Is that also flood prone going south on Main Street? Is that
on the Bram East location? That is an SPA area as well, and it has been historically a flood damage center. It does have SPA status in terms of special policies, and we'll be looking at that area. It's a low-lying area in the valley corridor, and it does get frequent flooding. But we believe that any kind of the bridge and the area through that corridor, it could be managed through emergency planning and some kind of flood remediation work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to say the next 5 people, and maybe you can get ready because we're going to run out of time if we don't make sure we keep going. Our first delegation is Andrew de Groot. The next one will be David Opalong. Then it'll be Kevin Montgomery, Chris Drew, and Donald McLeod. So if you could get yourself in the right order. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council, staff, residents. Andrew DeGroot, resident of Ward 5. I'm going to take a sort of scientific review of the LRT from my perspective. So in science, you start with a hypothesis, you test it, and you draw conclusions from that. And typically you set out to disprove the theories that you have, and if you can't disprove them, then your theory or hypothesis must be true. So that's where I'm going to start with. So one of the things I keep hearing from people is there are alternate routes. We go around by Peel Memorial Hospital, or we go across Queen, which is more important route for us. The master plan for Hurontario Main LRT project was completed back in 2010. That has been approved by staff, it's been approved by the previous council, and that plan has been in place for years. There's nothing stopping us after this gets pushed forward to build something else along Queen, or to lobby in the next funding package for an alternate route. But this package itself, $31.5 billion from Metrolinx and from the province, and I think you probably know this already, but I think it's important to share. Ottawa has an LRT program in place, and the city and the taxpayers there are spending $1 billion of their own money. And Region of Waterloo is an $800 million project in place, and they're spending $253 million of their own money. And we have a package in front of us that will cost zero. Now, why this route? Well, if you look at the BRT transit and LRT transit systems around North America, the Hurontario Main transit line is the highest volume transit or BRT transit line anywhere in North America. Of all of the BRT lines in North America, it is the most ready for an upgrade to an LRT. So people have talked about burying it as an option, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because staff already addressed this. But the reality is, if you look at other projects around the world, it's going to cost more like $1.3 billion to bury this over the 2 miles, based on the last 10 actual projects that have been finished and the average price there. So keep that in mind, because that money is going to have to come out of Brampton dollars as opposed to Metrolinx. And they already talked about what that money could spend, but we could go all the way up to Mayfield, we could go all the way across east to Airport Road or wherever. We also use that money to build a third hospital for the city, which it desperately needs. And I want this to sink in. This is very important, I think. The entire investment, private, municipal, federal, and provincial, in the downtown since 1986 has been $340 million. That goes back from the Heritage Theater in 1986, purchased from the city, all the way through the first City Hall, all the road improvements, Alderley, and all the residential buildings in the downtown core. That total, $340 million. And we're talking now about maybe burying it or moving it along the river at an incurred cost here for us in that neighborhood. Prosperity. So I've heard, the effect is going to be devastating during construction. Zoom already has capacity. Only Mississauga is going to benefit. I've heard some councillors say they doubt people even come to Brampton, and there's nothing here to come for. So I want to address that. Wherever the LRT goes, jobs will go, entertainment, restaurants, business will follow. Look at King Street or Queen Street in Toronto as examples. And these numbers are from Metrolinx. Along this line, there are going to be almost 1 million people, almost 600,000 jobs, and 34.5 million riders annually going up and down this line. That's 34.5 million potential customers for businesses in the downtown. Why is that? Well, because there's a permanency to an LRT that bus routes don't have. And developers see that, and developers build where they see LRTs. And typically they do transit-oriented developments, which are mixed-use, residential and commercial. But we already have those in place here. So we're sort of ahead of the curve, which is exactly where you want to be. But what does the current downtown look like? We have
You have 30 seconds. Okay.
Thank you. We have over 20 vacant lots down there. Do we have ridership? Absolutely. Young drivers, young people, drive less. 26% of the young have no license, and 23% drop in miles that they've driven. The young take transit. And specifically with them, the rich drive even less. I'll leave that one last point. It's 34.5 million people potentially coming downtown.
Thank you.
And I've got a petition that was signed by 20 local businesses that I dropped off. It was a little late today, so I want to add this to the record. I don't know who to hand that to.
Thank you very much. Is David Opalon here? David, you're next. Okay, thank you. If you could just keep it down, it's going to be hard for the delegations to keep on task. David, you're on.
Okay. I randomly stumbled upon the LRT meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I was disappointed, so I decided I needed to speak. I am a Brampton citizen who is for the LRT. Brampton is a beautiful city that always seems to be behind times. How long did it take the city to think a stretch bus was a good idea? Being a person who travels frequently around the GTA, it's embarrassing that I always have to defend Brampton. It's hard to get people to come to a city with so many negative stereotypes associated with it. Bad drivers, poor transit, event lists. I recall in the last meeting, one of the council members said that the downtown area has been worked on for the last 25 years. However, this work seems almost in vain as people still think there's nothing to do in Brampton. This is not just a belief held by those from the outside of the city, but also people who live here. One council member mentioned the taxpayers' dollars may be at risk with surprise costs. This is a big concern, but if these fees do come up, at least we know our money is going into something that will eventually bring more people and revenue to Brampton. Another council member mentioned that the traffic congestion would be an issue. Gridlock is a serious issue affecting cities all over the GTA. But the way to solve this isn't putting cars first. Creating a reliable transit network is an investment, so a bit more traffic now for less later isn't a big sacrifice. With all the things happening with the environment, this can be a greener solution that helps everyone. Also, after the main line is secured, future projects going down Queen will help smaller cities connect to the rest of the GTA. Another council member said something along the lines of, oh, it'll save 10 minutes in 20 years. Time is a resource we're not guaranteed. Every minute counts. In 20 years, everyone in this room will be significantly older. Some of you may not be able to drive. Some of you may be worse off, and some of you might depend on transit. Imagine someone who has never been to Brampton, who's going to connect with the GO line and misses it. They have 30 minutes to kill. They can explore the downtown area. They can see the neat little shops like Tea by Daniel, one of the 4 barber shops on each of the 4 corners, or even the gelato place right beside City Hall, and get lost in the old-timey feel of downtown. The downtown area has a great vibe in the summer, especially with all the events taking place. This will help change that negative stigma and provide a cost-effective way back into town. There are tons of things to do in Brampton, but the advertising seems to only reach those who stumble upon it or are at the downtown core. The LRT will help make the efforts of the event planners more worthwhile. To wrap things up, this is an opportunity that Brampton can't miss. We shouldn't fear the change it would bring. The tourism it would bring long-term economic benefits of being a city connected to the rest of the GTA. Right now, Brampton, the Flower City, is like a bud that's not being attended to. New things like the LRT will bring the Flower City, will help the Flower City blossom into something more promising for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Calvin Montgomery. Welcome.
Hi, Thank you. Good evening, Council and members of the public. My name is Kevin Montgomery. I'm a resident of Ward 3 and co-founder of Fight Gridlock. We're a group of residents and business owners advocating for the Main Street surface alignment of the Huron-Ontario LRT. Many of you might know me as being this guy. I don't own a car. Cars are boring, to paraphrase my 8-year-old. He said that around the time we were being interviewed for this article, where we kind of described briefly how we came about deciding to sell 2 cars and how we kind of managed to do that. And really what it comes down to is that we had a plan, not unlike this document. And it was really because of this transportation master plan and the launch of the Zoom lines that we were actually able to take a closer and serious look at other transportation options to get around the city. And this document makes a lot of really good points, including that we're not alone. It recognizes that Brampton can't consider its transportation strategies in isolation. We need to think about regional connectivity. And that's important because for people to realistically consider using transit as a viable option, they need to know that they can get to where they're going conveniently, whether it be from city to city, and for different reasons, including going to work, going to shop, or to meet with friends. This Metrolinx LRT project is a regional project. It's not Mississauga's LRT any more than Huron-Ontario, Maine, and the 502 that runs on it are Mississauga's assets. It serves the region, it serves Brampton. The text from the executive summary from the 2009 planning document entirely anticipates LRT, including concerns about space in downtown Brampton. It was identified 6 years ago and even says in a statement that a 4-lane cross-section does not preclude operation of BRT or LRT service. Our 2 road sections identified as BRT corridors operating alongside 4 general-purpose lane roadways include Huron-Ontario Street and Queen Street through the downtown and central areas. The plan proposed by Metrolinx is consistent with the transportation plan from 2009 in Brampton in terms of accelerating the implementation of LRT where possible and feasible. And an important note about the plan is it doesn't assume that there's going to be one route that's going to serve everything like one magic line. What we're talking about is a rational network of routes I've lost my place. Where's I at? And it talks about intensification and of some of the BRT corridors to LRT, and as identified as a strategic initiative to upgrade to LRT. And it's the BRT corridors to be operated as LRT corridors in the future, and that the city should aggressively move towards dedicated transit lanes in center median right-of-ways and seriously consider LRT technology as transit supportive land uses continue to be implemented, transit ridership grows, and funding becomes available. My apologies, that's the slide here. The point is that it seems we've met those merits. We have transit ridership that's been increasing since the Zoom launch, and we now have an opportunity for funding to supersede a section of Zoom to LRT as was planned in the Transportation Master Plan. Here's a fun fact, is that, of course, the Transportation Master Plan was approved and carried in 2009, including the prerequisites required for considering an upgrade to LRT. So, further evidence that transit ridership is becoming popular is that the actual rate of ridership in this cross-section of 2011 to 2014, ridership is increasing faster than the population in Brampton. There's a lot of evidence here, even just a cursory look, to suggest that there's some modal change happening in Brampton. It's not just a matter of population increasing that's accounting for transit ridership increases. People are actually choosing to get through Brampton differently. So, we have evidence from when the plan was launched up to now that transit ridership is growing, so why are we wavering from a plan that's working? We know that according to the same plan, Zoom is a success, funding is available, and that the plan anticipates superseding Zoom lines when this money is available. So again, why waver? This LRT route has been studied. In principle, the superseding was approved. Thank you, this is just my last point. It was approved in council in 2009. This project is ready to go, so let's get building. Yes to LRT.
So our next delegation is Chris Drew. Welcome.
Hopefully I can read my writing. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
You have 5 minutes. Go.
Okay. Hello, councilors. Hello, Madam Mayor. Hello, staff. Hello, Metrolink staff. Hello, consultants. Hello, Brampton residents, both in this room and downstairs. Hello to all the hard workers from the unions that are here today. Welcome. My name is Chris Drew, and I'm the co-founder of Fight Gridlock in Brampton. So who are we? We're a group of residents, and we want to see elected officials who support rapid transit without delays. We want action, not gridlock. And our name isn't just about congestion and traffic gridlock. It's also about the gridlock of making decisions. We support choices for Brampton residents, rapid transit, complete streets, carpooling. And we're really concerned about the future generation of Brampton residents. The reason I am here, the most passionate reason I am here, is for my future children and grandchildren. I refuse to let them grow up in a Brampton that I grew up in the 80s and 90s, when we didn't provide transit options. I will not let that happen. We cannot let that happen. We have to make better decisions. We need to build transit now. We're also concerned about our aging population and mobility issues. We're concerned about all of those things. I'm also a proud member of St. Paul's United Church, built in 1885. It's across the street. And I support the Huron-Ontario Main LRT and the Main Street alignment. Later this evening, you'll hear from the chair of our council. And I was happy to participate in a council meeting to help craft the statement that will be read. And I fully support what that statement says. Scott Goodison is also a member of St. Paul's United Church, and he supports the Main Street alignment. You might know him from Goodison Insurance. And he also, unfortunately, couldn't be here tonight, but wanted me to pass that along. I'm also speaking on tonight on behalf of my brother, Mark Drew, who's a shift worker who couldn't be here. My friend Denise, who's actually having surgery right now, doesn't own a car, so I'm actually speaking on behalf of two people as well. As Kevin has mentioned, I'll just touch quickly on this. Fight Gridlock in Brampton doesn't support alternate routes to Main. We support all of the above routes, and those are the routes. We support more routes, not fewer. We don't want to stop transit by considering an alternate to a funded and studied plan. We want to see rapid transit on all those lines you see up on the map. We refuse... Thank you. We refuse the premise of the question that we should have to choose. We want them all. And why do we want them all? Because that's what other cities in Ontario are doing. This is what Ottawa is doing right now. They're building one line, and they're rapidly starting on the next one when they get funding. They're not waiting. They're studying it. They're lobbying for it. They're meeting with the Prime Minister. They're meeting with the Premier. They want the second phase of their LRT now. We can do that in Brampton. We can build on Main and build on Queen. We can do two things at once. Waterloo. They have a second phase for their LRT. If Waterloo can do it, Brampton can do it. Portland, Oregon. They're building multiple LRTs at the same time. We can do the same. Downtown Brampton. Historic downtown Brampton. This is taken in about 1950, and as you can see, downtown Brampton has always struggled with cars, big trucks. Some of those trucks, I would imagine, are actually bigger than the proposed LRT vehicles in terms of dimensions. So this is obviously a challenge, and we obviously love our downtown and care passionately about it. The good news is LRTs are used around the world. Later tonight, you'll hear Chris. You can't compare Brampton to Europe. Just because it works in Europe, it's not going to work in Brampton. Stop doing comparisons. I refuse to not do comparisons. I will compare things. Because if it works in other cities, we're just as competent here in Brampton, and we can make it work here in Brampton. When you go shopping, you compare. When cities need services, they compare. Comparisons are done all the time. If it works there, it can work here. And check out how close those pedestrians are to the LRT. It works. That's Portland, Oregon. It works. That's also Portland, Oregon, and those people are on the patio having a drink. I wish I could be them right now. It works. More pictures. So let's talk about history. These are cities that are really old and have a lot of history. LRT is there. Really old and has a lot of history. That's the Rome Colosseum, and it has an LRT in front of it. And yes, it has wires, and I'm not looking at the wires. I'm looking at the Rome Colosseum. There's also Tel Aviv, Houston, Minneapolis, Dublin. I'm going to be there this summer. Paris. Another great picture, Main Street. If it works there, it can work here. That's the size of an existing Brampton Zoom bus. That's not even an articulated bus. We're already running those things downtown, and LRT's not much different. I don't know what happened there.
You have 30
I've
seconds.
got it. 30 seconds. Quote from a heritage planner, happens to be my uncle. He's a really nice guy. He supports LRT. All-day two-way GO train service. I would love, Bruce, to do more all-way two-way GO train service. Brampton needs it. But we understand that the problem is, according to this map, CN owns the tracks. So while we negotiate with CN, let's build LRT. We support it. Let's do it. And finally, Councillors, I have written a letter to my future children, but I haven't signed it, or I haven't finished it. I'm allowing you to finish it. I would like to tell my future children what we decide here tonight. I really hope you support the Huron-Ontario Main LRT. Let's build it now. It's funded, it's studied, let's go.
Thank you.
Build now.
Delegations to go. So Donald McLeod is coming up, and then it's going to be Lisa Stokes, Nikita Brown, Gloria Berger, Paulo Rebello, Zurpreet Singh. Okay, so if you can get yourselves ready, the next 5.
Madam Mayor, councillors, good evening. I do not have any slideshows or anything else like that. You got 50 delegations. By the time you're through, your brain is going to be numb. I'm just going to talk. The directors of Brampton Focus are urging this council to accept the proposed surface route for the Huron-Ontario Main LRT project as put forward by the province and Metrolinx. This is a major financial commitment from the province that will have tremendous positive economic as well as social ramifications for Brampton. We feel that any delay by proposing a Made in Brampton alternative may jeopardize and hinder future attempts for negotiation with the province and Metrolinx, and a worst-case scenario of excluding and isolating Brampton from any future opportunities for a modern, integrated transit system that connects Brampton with other municipalities within the GTA. Metrolinx will commence the construction phase of this project in 2018, which is a very short period of time before this massive project is launched. Metrolinx has indicated they cannot wait for Brampton to continue to waffle or debate which route they deem preferable as an alternative. They will go ahead on schedule, and this city might very well be given no alternative or say as to where the line will end. The time for negotiation and submitting a proposal for an alternative route is long since passed. The previous council should have decided on a Made in Brampton alternative when they voted 10-1 against the current route and then actively lobbied for its implementation and acceptance then. Mississauga got what they want in regards to proposed changes because they presented a unified front under Hazel McCallion and lobbied the provincial government and Metrolinx to accept their changes. 8 alternative routes have been studied, and although they have been ruled out as either too costly or not feasible, and confirmed by a third-party peer review, we are still, at this late stage of the game, undecided and divided as to what a Made in Brampton alternative would be. If this council decides not to accept the proposed route, we could very well be entangled and embroiled for years in an endless debate of what a Made in Brampton solution would be, and there is no doubt that we would be left far behind. With the lion's share of the LRT running through Mississauga, there is no doubt that they have a greater opportunity for development along the line, yet we believe there is a tremendous opportunity for Brampton nonetheless. Brampton has been struggling for well over 25 years that I have been living here to develop and revitalize the downtown core with very little success. All of the instituted changes have resulted in squandered tax dollars and a core that has remained stagnant. Brampton Focus believes that this LRT will be the catalyst that finally kickstarts revitalization in the core and presents a golden opportunity to expand and densify the Queen Street corridor with the future implementation of a second phase of the LRT. The economic and social benefit that this first phase of interconnecting transit will generate for Brampton far outweighs any of the short-term disadvantages. This debate has been contentious and heated at times, with many organizations and individuals taking a stand regarding the route of the LRT. But many, including myself, are not urban planners or engineers, and at the end of the day, this council must rely and trust that Metrolinx and staff have done their due diligence in recommending the proposed route as the most efficient and effective. To address citizens' concerns regarding costs, we would suggest that council secure guarantees from Metrolinx and the province that any cost overruns with regard to the construction phase within Brampton be incurred by Metrolinx, and council approach federal government for infrastructure grants to help offset any of the soft costs, thereby mitigating burden to the taxpayers of this city. Brampton proudly touts itself as the 9th largest city in Canada, yet we continually rank in the bottom 25% in terms of livability. We firmly believe that this is an opportunity to commence transitioning Brampton into a vibrant, dynamic city that will attract businesses as well as an investment for future generations. It's time for Brampton to evolve from a suburban community into a true city and all that comes with it. This council has a very difficult decision to make, and at the end of the day, this is not a ward issue, it's a Brampton issue. And all of the citizens of Brampton will have to live with that judgment.
You have 30 seconds.
But this is all about leadership and the ability to recognize opportunity and seize it, not just for the short term, but for future generations. This is the right thing to do, and this is the right route now. Change is inevitable. It's just a matter of whether Brampton will embrace it or chooses to be dragged kicking and screaming into the future. Thank you.
So it'll be Lisa, Nikita, Gloria will be the next three speakers. Welcome. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Stokes, and I want to thank you for listening to me again this evening. I would like to begin by reminding you that the reason I'm here today and not in front of Brampton City Council and not Churchville City Council is because in 1856 the Grand Trunk Railway came to Brampton and not to Churchville. Historically, towns with railways thrived and those without did not, and the effect is even more pronounced for towns that had interconnected railways the way the Huron-Ontario Main Railway will be connected. It's exciting to envision what a new generation of rail will do for Brampton. It's a city with 31% population growth expected in it by 2031. But it has a much lower employment rate than Mississauga. People who live in Brampton need the Huron-Ontario Main LRT to get to work. Our streets are already congested. Imagine them with another 260,000 people trying to get around in 2031. We can't build our way out of congestion by building more roads. Zoom cannot accommodate the predicted demand. The majority of trips are within Peel, meaning that the region needs the LRT to help people get around. Finally, when you look at ridership, both current and projected, along Main Street versus Queen Street, you will see that the numbers aren't even close. Main Street is by far the better route to build now. Why turn down Main Street now when Metrolinx is already working on Queen Street for later? Councillors, you need to lead Brampton to a bright future. LRT investment leads to intensification, increased property values, and increased municipal assessments. On June 22nd, when I delegated, I was told no one wanted to invest in downtown Brampton. Well, I see two major issues discouraging development: congestion and public transportation that won't keep up with population growth, and design constraints placed on developers due to the danger of downtown flooding. I also see two solutions. Approve the Huron-Ontario Main LRT, fully paid by the province of Ontario to address congestion, and prioritize the downtown Etobicoke Creek revitalization to remove development constraints due to flooding, which will allow intensification to occur. I have also heard that there is no opportunity for intensification in Brampton. So I took a walk from Steeles Avenue to Church Street, and this is what I saw. At Steeles and Main, I saw empty corners, scant new development, and sprawling one-story strip malls with large, underutilized parking lots. Shoppers World is a huge property that could be redeveloped with mixed-use retail and residential. Single-story standalone establishments surrounded by parking lots can be intensified. Imagine a mid-rise building of residential or commercial development here with a sushi restaurant or a pizza restaurant on the main floor. More sprawling one-story strip malls with large underutilized parking lots that could accommodate mixed-use, mid-rise residential and commercial development exist at Nanwood. Put parking underground and development on top in the downtown. Redevelop these standalone low-rise buildings on George Street. Repurpose the Heritage Theatre for a downtown grocery store, as Maple Leaf Gardens was repurposed in Toronto. Church Street has more single or dual-story standalone establishments and another empty corner, as does Nelson Street, with a listed building surrounded by parking, which could be redeveloped, keeping the facade. Finally, at Four Corners, where one of the bank buildings was already removed to allow access to the Rose Theater, there is no reason to keep any of the other corners as they are now. I keep hearing from councillors and others that no one supports Main Street, but it wasn't hard for me to find many people who were willing to participate in my slideshow. The facts support the Main Street alignment now and Queen Street alignment later. The Brampton Guardian, the Board of Trade, Stephen Del Duca, and Metrolinx all support the alignment. City Hall is packed tonight with supporters for the Main Street alignment. Do what is right for Brampton and all its citizens. Vote yes tonight.
Thank you.
For the
Thank you
Main
very much.
Street here, Ontario LRT.
Nikita Brown. Nikita?
Earl, there's no more presentations now till Chris Boehner. You can start whenever. Okay, so.
Nikita, it's all yours.
Thank you.
Can we start the clock again, please? Hold on a second. I just want to make sure you get your full 5 minutes.
All right.
Okay.
There we
here
go. See a zero.
Yeah.
So my name's Nikita. I'm a young professional. I work in Peel. I've lived in Brampton almost my whole life, and I operate a small business and have done so for the last 5 years. I've made it my mission to brag about everything awesome happening in this city, whether it's a great tea shop, whether it's that Mexican place that serves really good fish tacos, anything awesome, anything awesome happening at the local co-working space, I'm talking about it. I'm trying to get Bramptonians out to the restaurants to participate in the activities happening here. I'm not alone in this effort. There are lots of young professionals and business owners who are working hard to make Brampton a more vibrant place to live. But a question I often ask myself is, should we just stop trying? Brampton has become notorious for stifling change, innovation, and creativity. We've let far too many opportunities pass us by, and I'm a little bit tired of it. I'm tired of hearing we can't do that, or, this won't happen, and I'm tired of us missing great opportunities that just pass us by. One being the Pan Am Games evident that sticks up in my mind because it's happening right now. So the question is, who's ready to do something about the empty storefronts, the revolving door of businesses, and the fact that a lot of Bramptonians just drive on through our downtown and don't even stop? I see the LRT as an opportunity for change, an opportunity to build a downtown that's thriving. So far, I've heard no plans from anybody else to remedy the problems the downtown has outside of this LRT. To me, this LRT is a beacon of hope. It's a way for us to actively work towards a better future for this city. I don't see how things will change without it. The problems our downtown face have been allowed to persist for far too long with complacency from our elected officials in this city. People are worried that the LRT will take Bramptonians out of Brampton and to other cities. But the reality is people are already leaving and going elsewhere. So how do we fix that? We create a space where people actually want to come. There's hope. There's great businesses that are emerging currently. Tea by Daniel, Dolcezza Cakes, La Katrina, Little Shop of Ice Cream, Sulier Mosh are great examples of that. And those businesses have done a really great job of bringing people here on a regular basis. I commend those businesses for taking that leap of faith in our downtown, which is not exactly always a stellar place to start or run a business. Let's not miss the opportunity to encourage more innovation, interesting and worthy businesses to come into our downtown, and LRT will bring those businesses here. I've also heard that some would like to take the LRT to Peel Memorial instead. This shows a lack of belief in what we're trying to build here. We can't just abandon ship because things are not necessarily going the way we want. This should remain the core of our city as it has been for many years now, and we should be doing everything that we can to make it a place people want to come. I firmly believe that this LRT will bring the needed development here to help this downtown thrive. In any case, Queen Street Rapid is already being planned, so it's kind of a moot point, right? It's going to happen at some point, we hope. So why not take the Main Street route? It's funded, we've been given money for it, and we can make it happen now. I hope you'll accept this opportunity for Brampton by voting yes for the Huron-Ontario Main Surface Alignment. We can't afford as a city to go back to business as usual. We need to start now and build for the future. Brampton can't wait another 15 years for another opportunity to come along. Let's try and give the smart, talented, innovative young people leaving the city a reason to stay. This past month, thousands of high school students graduated, and many are going off to post-secondary education, and many of them have no inclination of coming back here unless they absolutely have to. Let's try and build a place that they want to come back to. Vote yes.
Gloria Berger. Welcome.
Hello, my name's Gloria Berger. I sent an email June 25th to yourself and every member of council. I did not get a response to any of my questions, so I'm going to go through them. I attended the Board of Trade Brampton and Transit LRT update presentation Thursday, June 11th, where you, the city's manager, and the Brampton's manager infrastructure planning spoke. I attended the Planning and Infrastructure Services Committee meeting Monday, June the 22nd, and listened to a number of delegations. I attended the Lab B LRT Town Hall Wednesday, June the 24th, again listening to a number of questions and comments regarding the LRT.
Could you speak up a little bit?
Sure. As a result of these presentations and information I have garnered from each of these meetings, I have a few questions. You've made reference to stopping the LRT at Steeles Avenue. The city manager made the same reference as well. Who is taking this position? It's not a rhetorical question. Who's taking this position?
Some members of council.
Thank you. You've made reference to a university in downtown Brampton. The city manager has made the same reference. Where in the downtown area would this university be located?
So I'll take a stab at this one. Right now, we are looking at putting an application together, and other applications that have been successful at the province of Ontario include transportation as part of their application. We may not choose an urban center, but we don't want to rule it out. And right now, Ryerson's talked to me about using the Y as their gym, using the library as their library, and possibly other buildings as part of their campus. So it's still up for debate on this council.
The June 17th, 2014, the new university will offer undergraduate and graduate programs in disciplines that align with Brampton's goal of creating a knowledge-based economy. The university is envisioned to have an initial class of 300 and grow to 3,000 in 5 years and 10,000 students in 10 years. I was just questioning where all those people were going to be. There's been made mention of revitalization. Please explain how traveling through our downtown is going to revitalize it. Thank you. We currently have the downtown transit terminal at Nelson and George and here in Ontario, with direct access to Via, Rail, and GO Transit, and the 6-story office building above, which was funded by municipal and private sector partnerships. Please explain how this particular transit hub has revitalized downtown Brampton since its opening in 1991. There is the initial Tuesday, April the 21st news release where you stated, "We know where you build transit, economic development flourishes." Please explain how the current downtown transit terminal transit hub provided the flourishing of economic development in downtown Brampton. At the Planning and Infrastructure Service Committee meeting on Monday, June the 22nd, Alan Jones of Steer Davis Glebe spoke of the intensification and potential residential density resulting from the LRT. Properties currently for sale along the proposed Brampton LRT corridor are 3 commercial buildings in downtown Brampton, north of Queen, and they're listed as long-term hold for an assembly and redevelopment opportunity for future mixed-use development. And there's the southwest corner of Steeles listed as primary intensification corridor, which will accommodate intense mixed-use development. There really isn't anywhere along the proposed Brampton LRT corridor for the potential intensification and residential density that Alan Jones spoke of. Does the city have plans for potential residential intensification along the proposed corridor? If so, where? Alan Jones provided a slide presentation which included a number of pictures featuring LRTs in prominent cities throughout Europe. Of all the pictures he showed, I believe only one showed cars on the road with LRTs. The remaining pictures showed no vehicular traffic with the LRTs. Is it the city's intention to close off traffic Main Street north of Queen to Nelson and make this an LRT and pedestrian-only road? I believe there's some confusion around what the actual numbers are regarding current ridership. Would you be able to clarify exactly what the current ridership is off-peak hours along the Brampton section of the proposed LRT corridor? And then I signed that thank you. I look forward to hearing from you shortly, which I have not. I'm a little disappointed. There's a number of obvious questions to be asked by everybody, and there's a number of questions to be answered which have not been answered by anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Paolo, you're the next speaker. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, councillors, members of the public, brothers and sisters from the different unions and community groups. My name is Paulo Ribeiro, and I have lived or worked in Brampton for a total of 27 years. Tonight, I am speaking on behalf of Unifor National Union. As many as you know, Unifor is a new union that was formed when the Canadian Auto Workers and the Communications, Energy and Paper Workers Union merged nearly 2 years ago. We are now the largest private sector union in the country, with more than 310,000 members, and approximately 10,000 of these either live or work in Brampton. As a union, we are dedicated to improving the lives of working people, from ensuring that people have access to good jobs, to building healthy and vibrant communities. And that is why I'm here tonight. I'm here to ask you to support the Euro-Ontario Main Light Rail Transit Project, because we believe it makes a significant improvement to the lives of working people in Brampton and the region. This is more than just a transit project. It is an investment in this city and its residents. There are many examples of cities, domestically and international, that have successfully chosen to invest in similar transit projects while still preserving their city's character and heritage. To quote an article from the Brampton Guardian dated June 17, 2015, there are numerous examples of cities that have embraced change and built transit lines and enhanced historic downtowns, yet also position a city for future growth. They include Edmonton, Calgary, Kitchener-Waterloo, Nottingham in the UK, Reims and Bordeaux in France, Bern in Switzerland, and Melbourne in Australia, unquote. Brampton is in a position tonight to choose its path going forward. Tonight, I ask you to vote yes for 4 important reasons. Firstly, it will create jobs. Building this new infrastructure will obviously lead to the creation of many new good jobs. Brampton Council could even consider working with Metrolinx to create community benefits agreement as other jurisdictions have. CBAs outline how jobs will be created for the community and even what efforts will be undertaken to provide opportunities for training and employment for marginalized people in the community, so that the benefit of the project, just from an employment perspective, is felt long after the building of the project is completed. Secondly, it will improve our infrastructure and integration of transit service with the region. Brampton is now a city of over 500,000 people, and we will have more than 900,000 by year 2031. Our community needs better, integrated, more robust public transportation for those residents who rely on public transportation daily. Brampton is part of a region. Our economy and our residents will prosper and have a higher quality of life if we provide more integrated, reliable, and affordable public transportation. The proposed LRT will be part of a larger transit network, which will include a downtown, transit mobility, two-way, all-day GO rail service to the Brampton downtown station, integrated with Zoom and Brampton Transit. This will definitely support the anticipated 10,000 students to the so desired new university campus. Thirdly, it will revitalize our downtown. This LRT line will play a major role in modernizing and revitalizing our downtown. A vibrant, dynamic downtown core is key to ensuring economic prosperity for our small businesses and attracting new investments to our city. A city of this size must reinvent itself in order to serve its growing population. Those who oppose to this project will use one of the very few arguments available to them, the fact that downtown businesses will be negatively impacted during the construction period. No one will deny the short-term impact. However, we are reminding these same business owners that this LRT project, when completed, will bring thousands more potential customers with expected increase of public accessing downtown, and in this way provide them with a long-term solution. Fourthly, it will make Brampton a cleaner and greener city. This week, political leaders from all over the Americas are gathering in the Climate Summit of the Americas hosted by the Toronto Premier Wynne. They will discuss the issue of climate change and how to reduce greenhouse gases. In meetings later in the year in Paris, leaders In Paris, leaders from all over the world will meet to set out global targets regarding climate change and the plan to reach those targets.
I'm sorry,
Brampton
used
now
your time.
has an opportunity to also to reduce the greenhouse emissions with the LRT project.
Thank you.
I could go on and on. I just want to list. I just want to. I just want to leave my last paragraph. You have the opportunity to make a decision
I'm sorry, Paul, I can't let you go any further.
that will support good
Used your
jobs.
time and appreciate you.
Thank
being
you,
here.
and consider this position.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Harpreet. So after Harpreet, it will be Harmon Gruwell, Jason Otley, Chris Benajar, and Doug Bridey. Okay?
Hi, my name's Harpreet. I'm a resident from Ward 4. I'm also the co-founder of Lab B, which is a creative space in downtown Brampton. Cities all around the world are beginning to recognize that public transit is one of the keys to attracting a young workforce. With that comes economic growth, and with that comes prosperity. And that's the opinion of experts. It's not residents or politicians or staff or youth or property owners or lawyers. It's experts. It's science, math, research, and numbers. For the last 50 years, cars have been the center of urban planning, and cities were built horizontally and meant to accommodate society's preference to drive everywhere. Now things have changed. Having a car is a luxury. Many millennials and kids in university often can't afford cars. Graduates are challenged with the stagnant job market and OSAP loans. Transit is no longer a nice thing to have. It's a real need for many people, young and old, in this city. And this is why we've all seen so many young people mobilize around this concept, especially when we have so much apathy in politics. We want to live in areas that have jobs, that have culture, and that have accessible ways to get around. We want to cool downtown, and the surface route LRT is a catalyst for a new chapter in Brampton's history. We have to turn the page, move on, hustle, and get it done, and keep building. Take, for example, Waterloo, Ontario, which has a rapid transit system set to launch in 2017. Already, developers have built projects around this system. One of the projects is a 14-story condo with an LRT stop at the front steps. It was sold out before construction even began. And that's at least one reason why small companies like Google, Apple, Canadian Tire, Facebook, on and on and on and on, and thousands of startups have moved there because it makes sense. It gives their workers a quality of life and affordable living. The point is that development follows construction, and it's not the other way around. The LRT will breathe life into downtown by attracting entertainment, arts, culture, property development, and jobs. We need to do everything we possibly can to attract and create jobs in Brampton. That should be our #1 priority. The money is on the table. Please make a decision that takes into account the next generation, and it gives us something to work on and something for us to hand on to our kids. We want your kids to move home after they go to school and get a job here and live here and have a high quality of life here. So I really encourage you guys to vote for the surface route LRT through downtown Brampton. It's our future.
Harmon Gruwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, city staff, and members of the public for allowing me the opportunities to speak in front of you today. I am a youth that was born and raised in Brampton. I'm also an entrepreneur who works out of downtown Brampton. I'm Harpreet's partner, and I'm also a co-founder of Lab B, a creative space in downtown Brampton. I'm here to voice my opinion on the LRT. I am for a surface alignment LRT that passes through the downtown. After my last delegation on June 22nd, there has been a lot more engagement around this issue from both sides and the media. From my previous delegation, I wanted to highlight 2 important things that I had mentioned. 1, Brampton has a growing pool of talent, and currently this potential is leaving en masse as there is no infrastructure to support them. 2, there is a growing group of committed young entrepreneurs who are positioning their businesses in the downtown in an effort to highlight the wealth of potential that exists here. However, they will not stay long if the city doesn't make any action in favor of supporting their growth and the growth of downtown. For today's delegation, I want to focus on the vision for Brampton. I want to know if we care about making this city a cultural hub. When my peers and I think about the LRT, we see it as an opportunity for Brampton to have the means for transporting individuals from one thriving area to us. I understand that some may think, why would people want to come to downtown Brampton? But I think that we're missing the diamond in the rough. Once a better means of transportation is set for a growing population, developers and investors will see the opportunity and capture it. Brampton citizens will begin creating more businesses that people will want to visit because that is our responsibility. The city will be a step in the right direction, a direction that will bring more life and excitement to our core. Madam Mayor, councillors, and city staff, it is the responsibility of the city to provide the kind of infrastructure that will benefit its citizens in the long term. Infrastructure for yourself, your kids, and their kids. Based on the reports, a surface route alignment is the beginning of the right type of infrastructure. This can be the renewal of our downtown. It's the first step, and I urge you to take it. Vote in favor of the Huron-Ontario Main LRT surface alignment. Thank you.
Jason Otley here.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, members of the public and staff. On behalf of LiUNA Local 183 and its 45,000 members, many of whom call Brampton home, I would like to take this opportunity to impress upon council the need to support the Metrolinx plan for the Huron-Ontario Main LRT. As many of you are aware, LiUNA Local 183 is the largest construction local in North America. We represent workers in the residential and heavy civil sectors of the industry, as well as in the industrial sector. In addition, a significant number of our members also reside in Brampton. In fact, almost half of our executive board call Brampton home. To say that this issue hits close to home would be a severe understatement. Our continued support and investment in Peel Memorial Hospital underscore the significant presence of our membership in this city. Today, we stand before you not just as a strong and vibrant union, but also as significant community partners. A bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. Today, this old adage rings true more than ever. Today, council could be on the verge of making an incredibly costly mistake, a mistake that we feel will hamper the ability of Brampton to achieve its true potential for decades to come. My remarks tonight are focused not on the merits of the positions of those entrenched on either side of this debate. In fact, I think I know I have, been so consumed in this debate that we have lost sight of the proposition you are faced with tonight. We can't seem to see the forest through the trees. My hope tonight is to provide you some much-needed clarity. Today, you must decide either to accept the plan as provided and the $1.6 billion investment that the province is willing to fully fund or not. It is irresponsible to suggest that the province is open to ideas of considering alternate routes or plans. Minister Del Duca in the Brampton Guardian on June 30th, when asked, would a no vote derail the project entirely, was clear and unequivocal in his response. It was as follows. If ultimately council decides that they don't want an LRT to run up to Brampton GO Station, I will respect the wishes of council. From what I can tell at this point in time, that would mean the LRT would run from Port Credit GO up to Steeles Avenue at Shoppers World. And that would be the extent of the project, and then we would get on with continuing to build the rest of the regional transit network. I personally believe that would be an enormous missed opportunity. Those are his words, not mine. He goes on to say, when asked, is the province open to changing or redefining the proposed route? His response was equally clear. I'll respect the decision that council makes on July 8th, but I am really not opening the door to extensive ongoing negotiations about routes. How anybody can suggest that the province will come back to the table and provide the additional funds necessary to support the critics of the proposed plan is beyond any degree of comprehension. Some have suggested that the federal government will come to the table and fill the void left behind if the province stops the LRT at Steeles, as the minister has suggested. They mentioned that the City of Toronto got $2.5 billion, so they must have enough money in the kitty to give Brampton an additional $400 million. It seems like an enormously dangerous gamble with a lot more unknown variables, enormous downside risk, and very little upside potential. In fact, to take on such a risk would be incredibly irresponsible to the ratepayers and residents of this city. So the question that council is being asked to decide seems pretty simple. Accept the $1.6 billion investment and get on to the business of restoring and revitalizing the downtown core of Brampton, fully implementing a plan to relieve the traffic congestion which is strangling Brampton's growth and potential, assist in further increasing Brampton's ability to secure a new university campus, create countless construction jobs and employment, and increase taxation revenue from the inevitable development that will eventually follow the significant public transit investment. Or council can say no and prepare to explain to Brampton residents of today and those of tomorrow how council snatched defeat from the jaws of victory and threw $1.6 billion away on a hunch they could do better. Make Brampton strong, and tonight vote in favor of the proposed Metrolinx plan.
Thank you. Oh, are you two switching?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Bryden.
Madam Mayor and council and staff and the public, we've chosen age over beauty, so I'm going first.
Okay.
And I hope you've all got your jammies, because I think we're going to be here for a while tonight. At CFBB, we believe that good leadership at the municipal level requires the building of consensus before making transformational decisions. The threats, the intractable positions, the impatience, and quite frankly, the lack of transparency have characterized the tactics used to date. The result has roiled the community, split the council, and we now have some wanting the LRT and not wanting it at all. City building has been a casualty in the discussion, and the raw emotion of the Fennel years is once again part of the conversation. And this council, after over 100 heartfelt delegations tonight, is supposed to make an informed decision that reflects what has been heard? How is that possible, unless the delegation process is a sham and council minds are already made up? CFBB is opposed to the route up Main Street through downtown. Why? 1, existing floodplain. How can Metrolinx, TRCA, and planning staff approve a surface alignment for the LRT in the middle of the existing floodplain without any mitigation plans? If there is a major flood, everything north of Woodbrook Drive to the downtown GO station will be underwater. 2, development charge and increased assessment. The numbers show that the population growth and development potential will be along the Queen Street corridor. What then is the economic justification to focus on Main Street and its low density, heritage-designated properties north of Charlet, a stretch which represents over half of the total length of the LRT through Brampton? Number 3, difficult expansion for future LRT. We oppose the proposed location of the terminus station on the west side of Main Street, just north of the CN Rail overpass, with trains required to cross Main Street north for entry and exit privileges. How has Metrolinx planned to expand the LRT to reach the Peel Memorial Campus and the Queen Street corridor? We believe it will be impossible for any future expansion from this site. It will require a complete redesign of the system, an unlikely financial reality. What is most likely to be approved is a BRT route that will still share the entry into the downtown. 4, heritage. St. Paul's United Church, a superb heritage structure which dates from 1886, is an active and growing congregation. How will it be able to handle weddings and funerals with appropriate vehicles standing by at the foot of their entrance stairs and sidewalk, obstructing curbside trains from passing by? Ambience. Bramptonians take great pride, and understandable pride, in the Hurontario Street entrance to the city and its over 200-year-old downtown. How easily will that largely residential route be despoiled by adding overhead wires, poles, and transformer substations along the route north of Nanwood? Parking. Routing along Main Street on both sides with tracks at the curb adjacent to the sidewalks will remove all parking throughout the day and in the evening. Downtown merchants rely on the convenience of parking in close proximity of their business to remain viable. Are these long-term merchants to be sacrificed, and will we see boarded storefronts? Construction. What makes matters worse for them and for us will be a 2-year construction period, with the construction impeding traffic flow through downtown. This could quite easily be the death knell of our downtown. 8, congestion. The inner core through the Four Corners, and especially at Nelson and Main, is already unacceptably congested. And into this bottleneck of competing traffic, the 3-car LRT will be crammed, along with cars, trucks, Zoom, cyclists, and pedestrians.
You have 30 seconds.
With 2 lighted intersections on Main less than 100 meters apart. Only one downtown stop is required. The walking distance from the downtown GO station is anywhere in the inner core is approximately 5 minutes from City Hall to the GO station is about 250 meters. Traffic conflict. For the LRT to access the GO station just beyond the rail overpass, the trains will have to block north and southbound traffic to negotiate access and egress.
Mr. Bryden, you've used all your time. Thank you very much for being here this evening. Appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry. Sorry. That was the 5 minutes. Chris, you're next. We made the agreement.
Chris Boehner will follow.
Yeah. Mr. Chris, you're next. Please, can we stop the chatter between Councillor Spovieri, please. Don't engage. Councillor Spovieri, stop, please. Please, can we show respect? Councillor Spovieri, please stop. Just a little order, please. Okay, Chris, you have 5 minutes.
It's going to be hard, but I'll try my best.
Okay.
No, it's not working here. Oh, there it goes. The future of our downtown is at a crossroads. This is not an LRT, no LRT debate like our mayor, certain councillors and senior staff, and a few special interest groups have made it out to be. The debate is about what final alignment is best for Brampton's future and prosperity. CFBB fully supports the proposed Metrolinx HM LRT route up to Steeles Avenue. It's the final alignment that we strongly oppose. Before I begin my delegation, I would quickly like to acknowledge that if it wasn't for a few concerned residents and a few councillors, there would be no meeting tonight, no further debate, and no exchange of ideas or opinions. On just 1 week's notice from staff releasing their recommendation report, a quick and irresponsible decision would have been likely succeeded on June the 22nd at 1 p.m. in the afternoon when most are at work and can't voice their opinions. For such an important and transformational decision, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, it was hastily included and buried within an already jam-packed agenda for the Planning and Infrastructure meeting. It was a page taken right out of the playbook of our former mayor, something that most of you campaigned passionately against, and with promises of a more inclusive and open administration. Don't we deserve the best LRT route into the downtown core, not just the most cost-effective? Why have we been presented with this unacceptable take-it-or-leave-it option from the provincial government? Toronto, Mississauga, Hamilton, Kitchener all had their say in how their LRT transit systems were planned. Why isn't Brampton being treated the same way? Quickly, I don't want to repeat all the stats of Mississauga and Brampton, but there's a difference. Out of the $1.6 billion, $1.25 billion is Mississauga's portion with 19 stops and 17.5 kilometers. Mississauga also got a transitway. $173 million was from federal and provincial governments. 2 parking garage structures have been built in the last 3 years, $110 million investment. Lakeshore Line already is an all-day GO service. Streetsville, Mississauga got a $45 million GO bus maintenance facility with 400 jobs. And Mississauga has 9 GO stations across 3 lines. Brampton has 5.6 kilometers, roughly $345 million. We only have 3 GO stations. The Bramley station will see extended platforms for 12-car trains by the end of 2017 and a commitment to all-day GO service with no firm date announced. Downtown Brampton has a very limited parking, and if commuters don't arrive before 7 a.m., there is no parking left. Desperately needed is a GO parking garage structure, and all-day GO service has been promised for 10 years, but no firm date has been announced. We have the Zoom buses, but they're not really true BRTs. The federal and provincial government have contributed $95 million each. And of course, there's a promise of looking to the Queen Street corridor at some point in the future. Let's look at some elevated LRT systems in North America. You've got the SkyTrain in Vancouver, going through Parkland.
the Honolulu LRT, you've got the TTC Old Mill Subway crossing the Humber River, a TRC managed watershed, you've got a freight rail overpass, the Westland Golf Country Club. Now, let's quickly go through our preferred route. We prefer the Valleyland route, elevated through the Valleyland. So you're going to start off at Nanwood, elevate into the Meadowland Park on a northeast trajectory. You're going to continue through Meadowland Park. All recreational activities in Parkland can coexist very easily with a quiet and pollution-free elevated line due to its small footprint, and any flood concerns are eliminated. That's a nice view that you could get with the LRT. Then it crosses Clarence, then it enters Centennial Park on the north side of Etobicoke Creek, continues through the Centennial Park, crosses Etobicoke Creek on the east side of the Royal Canadian Legion Lodge, crosses Etobicoke Creek and enters Centennial Park, and so on. It now enters the Peel Memorial site, which is going to be a home of a new life sciences district. Connecting to this site with the LRT line is crucial to Brampton's prosperity. 200,000 patient visits and 5,000 employees. Here's an example of what the LRT station would look like. You have an elevated line going to Peel Memorial. You have a grade level bus system accessing the station. This can be expanded to a future LRT along the Queen Street corridor, and it's crucial for Brampton's vision of that corridor. The LRT station then leaves elevated along Center, goes down Queen, through an abandoned parking lot, through the YMCA parking lot, and now this is a twist. You enter an elevated line into a new parking garage structure.
Okay.
And this will give us huge advantages because we desperately need it, number one, but also if you leave that parking garage structure on the west side, you can link up to the existing rail corridor for a northern trajectory. I'm not going to have time to go through this, but there's many advantages for going with our plan. We believe that our LRT plan will have no impact on any flood control measures. The existing plan, like Doug mentioned, is all within the floodplain. That's how it will look if it's flooded.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sorry,
Thank you very much. Our next 5 speakers are J. Paul Massey Singh, J. Dean Amin, Amrit Tour, Chad Belcher, Elaine Belcher, and Susan Crawford. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Well, things be prompted there, just waiting for the clock to be set. I guess a quick shout out and thank you to all the spouses, partners, grandparents who are looking after children tonight to allow us to be here. I know a lot of sleepovers were organized tonight. Thank you. That's me. Thank you. Yeah. What do I press?
Yeah, you're going to press
Red?
that.
Oh, thank you. Perfect.
Just wait a second. Earl, can you set the clock? Can you set the clock, please? Is it at 0? It's not at 0 on my screen.
You know I'm going to need every second, so.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. Oops, I think we were missing a slide here. Thank you very much. My name is J. Paul Massey Singh. I'm here on behalf of the Brampton Board of Trade. This is not the first time the Board of Trade has had an opportunity to speak on this issue, but I'd like to recap for those who haven't heard our position in the past. The Brampton Board of Trade has been actively engaged in the review, discussion, and feedback on the HMLRT since 2013. The Brampton Board of Trade has always supported a surface route, provided there were no better alternatives presented by staff. Last year, we asked for a thorough analysis of alternate routes. It had been provided to us earlier in June and has been peer-reviewed. We are satisfied with that analysis. Since 2013, we have consulted with the business community members on this issue through a process of town halls, our AGMs, our newsletters, and holding information sessions specifically on the HMLRT. The message from the business community is clear. Get on with this project. This is Brampton's moment to shine, and we are recommending approval today. Through employer consultations, however, we have learned there is some misinformation. I'd like to use a little bit of my time today to speak to some of those misconceptions. For those who are concerned about now or later, for those who say Metrolinx is holding a gun to our community's head, we say we have an opportunity to seize now. Brampton is in competition with other communities for these transit dollars, for universities, for residents, for businesses, for talent. By saying no to this opportunity or looking at alternate routes, we risk setting the clock back in our community 8 to 10 years. Our community cannot afford to wait. This is our moment. Some would characterize this opportunity as not being best for Brampton, but the remnants of a Mississauga plan. We say that's a loser scenario. The story is different. This is a winning story, and we need to change the narrative on Brampton. The Brampton Board of Trade chooses not to see this as the leftovers of a Mississauga plan, but that we are getting the residents of Ontario to kickstart a Brampton transit system by building us the spine that will connect our city for years to come. We've heard that some councillors are not satisfied that our former mayor sufficiently represented the city at these meetings regarding the HMLRT, and a business community's message is clear in return. Get over it. On one hand, we have this perception. On the other hand, we have real dollars being put in front of us. Those dollars are committed dollars and are ours to take the advantage of. For those talking about surface versus tunnel, a surface route will not impact right-of-way, trees, or setbacks. A tunnel, however, will not be funded by Metrolinx. Brampton taxpayers would have to fund it. This is a waste of taxpayers' money. The business case analysis indicates that the surface route has a much higher ROI than a tunnel. From the Brampton Board of Trade's perspective, we oppose the tunnel because it does not deliver customers to the downtown merchants. And finally, if we as Brampton taxpayers, and originally we said 380, as we've learned today, as the low end might be $570 million, if we're prepared to ask our taxpayers to contribute that $570 million, I would much rather see that being used to build on this spine and taking our LRT north up to Mayfield, or as we've learned today, potentially all the way out to the airport. Downtown or go around. Route selection must demonstrate return on investment, passenger focus, not political preference. Surface routing through the downtown is an opportunity not to be squandered by politics. The LRT has the capacity to connect the downtown, to transform the downtown, to reduce congestion by allowing more to appreciate the downtown's offerings. Today, yes, our downtown is underperforming. Office vacancy rates are approximately 20%. Retail vacancy rates is approximately 4%. But the LRT is different than the Rose Theatre, Elderly, or the LED screen or other investments that have been made to date. It actually delivers customers to our downtown. The forecast is for 1,600 in the AM peak and 15% more in the afternoon. If we choose to ignore the downtown today, we risk sentencing it to death. Livability. Our community competes for jobs, talents, and investments. The LRT connects and delivers customers, 34 million passengers per year. The bottom line is that the new mix of business, residential, and jobs are a net benefit to our downtown commercial area and neighborhoods. I've talked about the recommendations, a summary for our rationale. This is real and tangible before us. It's been 6 years in the planning. It's our time to act. There's much to be said, but I want to say one last thing. I think it's important. Our members, large and small employers, have been clear about the expectations of this council. We expect this council to be different from the dysfunctional one that preceded it. We expect this council to be collaborative, to find solutions in a timely manner, to make decisions based on fact, and to make decisions that are best for all of Brampton, not for parochial ward interests. Lastly, I want to ask what they're not going to give me more time. No means another 8 to 10 years without an LRT. No means a significant hit to property taxes. No means squandered job opportunities for Brampton families and businesses. It means our image as a community will continue to suffer. Businesses in the downtown will be given the clear message that it's not important, and they will leave. Tonight's not about legacy. Tonight's not about the LRT. It's about leadership, and it's about legacy.
Thank you.
Are you going to be the council? There are a lot of Bramptonians tonight showing leadership and accountability. We expect council to do the same.
Sorry, J. Paul.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Welcome. Can I just get a little quiet here, please? Thank you.
All right, this is a long meeting thus far, but how's everybody doing thus far? Everybody still in this? All right. Woo! Everybody's in this? Councilors, is everybody still awake? It's pretty, it's a long one, but it is what it is. I'm here to represent and speak on behalf of Brampton, and one of the biggest problems with Brampton is the negativity. Negativity is it is one of the overarching themes of this city. Since I came back from Hamilton in 2010, every time I try to talk to my peers about Brampton, about building in Brampton, about progress in Brampton, they always bring up these really negative, these very dark and almost very negative and very, hopeless images of this city. This project is something that could turn that around overnight. You know what I mean? My colleagues and I first became aware of this project in 2012, and we went to the Metrolinx meeting in 2013, and we met some of the Metrolinx staff here, in fact. And when we were there, the question I kept on asking, because I was looking at this plan, and I had to get out of the Brampton negativity. I was like, how's this thing going to fit in downtown Brampton? How's it going to get to where we, I had all these questions, but then Metrolinx assured us that they had experts on it and that it could be done. So then what I asked them was that what did we have to do at that point to make sure that Brampton didn't get screwed over later on? That was my main question. What do we have to do to make sure that Brampton got this end of the LRT? And it turns out that it's still this Brampton negativity that's going to cost us this. It's not the province saying we can't do it. It's not most of the people here saying we don't want it. It's just these things about flooding. Like, that's barely come on, flooding? Then they also talk about, really? I think California is on a fault or some fault line or whatever, but they still build there. What do we talk? We talk about heritage. Brampton's, I was driving down, today we did the drive down Main Street, up and down, and we're just like the St. Paul's Church is the one heritage building, and all the members seem to be down for this project. What's this heritage that we're trying to, I didn't see it, you know what I mean? We just gotta be real sometimes, folks. Whatever. And about the heritage aspect, I got this quote. It says, sometimes to show proper respect to the future, you have to show a little bit insensitivity to the past, And that's what this project is. It's about the future versus the past. It's about people who see the vision, people who believe in this city, versus people who have a lack of faith in downtown Brampton, which is very disappointing, people who lack belief in the city, and people who have a lack of respect for the majority of the Bramptonians' opinions. And it's just very disappointing. There's all the facts, all these amazing facts that have been presented today, and I've been reading these for years now, and it just almost seems like almost a no-brainer. Are we trying to say that Brampton would be the first city that got an LRT and everything went worse? That's come on, we're not that bad here. I'm not buying it. You know what I mean? Brampton, we're a city we could do much better, and we just need an opportunity like this to jump on and really, become the catalyst for that change. Can you imagine? Now let's try to imagine 10 years from now. You're driving down from Lakeshore down here, Ontario, or you're on the Mississauga LRT, and then you get the Steels and they tell you, end of the line, get off. What? What is that? By that point, everybody's going to realize what was at stake at this moment, and then they'll be like, who was in charge then? And really, right? Guys, this is about the future. This is about vision, and we have an opportunity today to really seize the moment and seize the opportunity to show everybody here, put everybody on notice that this is a new Brampton and there's a new direction that we're taking things in. And yesterday was our heritage. Today is the day that we make a decision about our future.
You have 30 seconds.
And tomorrow is the day that we start, not a new chapter, a new book on Brampton, because I really believe in this city, and to throw away this fantastic opportunity would be such a shame. And it would send such a bad message to myself, but a lot of people in younger generations, and it's not going to help change the negative stereotypes about Brampton. Please vote for this. Thank
you. Amrit Tour, welcome.
How does this work?
Welcome.
Oh, hello. My name is Amrit Tour. And I wrote a speech, but before I start it, people mentioned floodplain mitigation. There is a proposal to revitalize Etobicoke Creek. So if there's a delegate coming up to speak about flooding, your argument's actually void and they have a presentation on it. So please don't make that statement. As for where the intensification should occur, another delegation also showed pictures of where vertical intensification could also occur. So if your delegation is going to be confronting that issue, it was already addressed already. Please don't make that and make this longer than it needs to be. The CFBB said it's a yes or no proposition. It actually is a yes or no proposition. And the reason why is because there was meetings as far back as 2012 that asked us whether or not we want to have an alternative. And I didn't see any opposition councillors there at the meeting. So I could only assume that it was not important at the time, and I can only assume that there were no alternates on the table. Anyways, I would have to ask you, opposition councillors, what would you like your legacy to be? Do you know how hard other cities had to work to get their LRT built? Think about it. In Charlotte, North Carolina, NASCAR country, a city of houses and strip malls had to struggle to build their LRT. They didn't have a free pass that our city is getting. In the South, an area that's apparently rife with ignorance, even they saw the virtues of an LRT. They built it there, with a city with more love of cars than our city will ever have. And even then, their LRT exceeded the expectations for ridership in a city that loves cars. Property values went up, a measurable benefit to people in the city. Do you want to look back at your time in council and say that you were the people who sat around and shot down ideas? Is that what you want? Where was this opposition when we built a second city hall? A $200 million city hall. This would have been a nice thing to have alternates at that time. Anyways, who would ride the LRT? Someone like myself. I wouldn't have to spend an hour in traffic getting to Port Credit to work. Almost all my transit time is spent on the 410. I could hop on the LRT, I could get over there, and I can get back. On my way back, I can get my beard trimmed at one of the local barbershops. I can pick up dinner and eat at one of the local eateries. How is that not benefiting the local economy? That is a direct and measurable way that it does so. My mother would not have to sit for an hour in traffic to go to the same place that I have to go because we finished 30 minutes apart, wasting our gas money, wasting our insurance money. Mm-hmm. And as for the statement that somehow an LRT would be dangerous to people and pedestrians, do people throw themselves in front of streetcars in the city of Toronto? No, this does not occur. I love my Acura the same way John loves his Lincoln. But there will never be enough road for all the cars that are necessary to get us to and fro. In Beijing, they have a highway with 10 lanes on each side. Do you know what happens there? They have traffic jams that last literally for days. This means that there will never be enough space. A no vote doesn't mean we'll get to negotiate for a different route. Voting no doesn't mean that Brampton residents will be spared the $1.6 billion price tag. That's not how provincial taxes work. If we vote no, that $1.6 billion will be spent elsewhere, and Brampton will still have to pay its share in provincial taxes for nothing. If you vote no, the city will get nothing, absolutely nothing.
They will get kicked
No.
Voting no.
Excuse me. Excuse me, sir. If you can't keep your voice down, you're going to have to leave, okay?
No.
We're going to show respect to all the delegates.
Brampton won't be a place that businesses will want to invest in. No, Brampton will not be a city that we're the best and brightest will want to live in. A no, Brampton will not be the city where residents can pursue its goals without first investing $5,000 and $230 a month for a car that will be stuck in traffic. No, the city will not grow. Instead, it will become bloated. Infrastructure like this will gentrify the area. Brampton will not set any precedents by being the first city in the world to not raise its property values where the LRT runs through. Gentrification is needed and prevents the rise of ghettos by providing links to opportunity. Voting no to this will condemn the city to the same fate as the ghettos of the world. Voting no will result in Brampton getting nothing, absolutely nothing, and the city will continue to be a laughingstock in the GTA. This is not on us, the residents. It is on you, the councillors.
So please do the right thing and prevent the city from choking on its own lack of foresight. Thank you very much.
Chad Belcher. Chad Belcher, Elaine Belcher, and Susan Crawford are next, okay?
Good evening, I'm a Ward 3 resident. For starters, I am for an LRT. I am just opposed to the Main Street surface route. Several reasons for my concerns, but I'm not going to go into those because that could take up my whole 5 minutes. What I will ask is this: what has changed in the last year when our council explicitly rejected this alignment? The fact that it's a gift? It's not a gift. It's still my taxpayer dollars that are paying for this. And as Minister Del Duca was quick to point out, the provincial funding allocation will cover, and I quote, by and large, the lion's share of the project costs. He was quite clear to ensure no misunderstanding that the Liberals were indeed guaranteeing full funding for this project. Furthermore, Metrolinx is pursuing a federal program to cover 25% of the funding, and if they don't get that, the provincial Liberals supposedly will cover the gap. Given this, as well as the track record of misspending and unfulfilled commitments by our provincial Liberals, I don't know how anyone can possibly believe there will be no cost to taxpayers. Those that profess that are either fooling their audience or fooling themselves. So what's changed in the past year? Where 4 of you, as I said, explicitly rejected this surface route. The fact that the provincial Liberals are offering $400 million in funding suddenly makes this alignment the right choice for Brampton. Money wasn't the issue last time around, and it shouldn't be a determining factor this time around. Other than the threat of not getting an LRT in Brampton at all, the bullying tactic and intimidating tactics, other routes provide the benefits that are being professed that this downtown route would provide. Bring the development to downtown. Don't bring the trains downtown. Why are we jumping to the third priority in the Big Move project that Brampton outlined years ago? Each and every one of you before me campaigned on cleaning up the lack of transparency at City Hall. When is that going to happen? In the recommendation report published a month ago to the Infrastructure Committee, Appendix 3 highlights of the approved surface route states, quote, the electric power in the area extending from Nanwood Drive to the Brampton GO station is proposed as catenary-free, i.e. no overhead power cables. There is no such capability. This has been made very clear by Bombardier. This council has more than enough right to question and not trust the information presented to them by city staff. This is but one example where information and statistics have either been misrepresented at best or deceitful at worst. This report also is blatantly biased in its preference for the proposed route, offering no cons against the surface route and no pros for any other alternative. How's that even possible when there are dozens of delegations tonight and hundreds of petitioners, as you'll find out later, who can tell you the cons for this current proposal? I asked this council to hold city staff accountable for what they were instructed to do last year, as well as at the last infrastructure meeting, by providing answers to questions with more than 24 hours notice by which you all have to make a decision on in the next 4 or 5 hours. Those voting for this plan are casting a vote to continue the secrecy and lack of accountability within the walls of this building, and you are no better off than the predecessors you spoke so harshly about just 9 months ago. When is our mayor going to fulfill on her campaign promises of uniting this council? Writing an op-ed implying that we must accept this plan or risk losing the funding is not bringing this council together. It is not providing the leadership that might result in a consensual decision amongst this group for what is in the best interests, or at least acceptable to, the residents and businesses of Brampton, not just those affected by this most directly, but all residents and businesses in Brampton. Lastly, I wonder where the mayor's campaign promises are of using her experience to work with the provincial Liberals to influence decisions that are best for Brampton. Simply accepting and aggressively pushing forward with the current proposal does not demonstrate our mayor has influence with the provincial Liberals. What it demonstrates is that the provincial Liberals have influence over our mayor.
Elaine Belcher. Welcome. Welcome. Go ahead.
Are they done?
We'll start. I'll stop them if they start getting to me. Councillor, could you stop engaging with the audience, please? Please, you both need to, so stop. Show some respect for the delegate.
I would like them to show respect too.
Okay, please show respect. We have a delegate who's been here waiting. Please be silent, all of you.
Thank you. My name is Elaine Belcher. I'm proud to be a part of a local community who have mobilized engaged residents and businesses with no political motivations. I am against the proposed Main Street LRT surface alignment, but support an alternative LRT that services the transit needs for all of Brampton. I continue to wonder why the City of Brampton is not getting its own LRT like Hamilton, who is getting an 11-kilometer LRT that is connected to both a hospital and a large post-secondary school. Finch is getting 11 kilometers that is also connected to a large post-secondary school and within a short walking distance to a hospital. Mississauga is getting 17 kilometers that is connected to both a large post-secondary school and a hospital. Brampton? Brampton is the 9th largest city in Canada. Brampton is the fastest growing city in Canada, and we are not getting our own LRT. We are not getting an LRT that connects to a large existing post-secondary school, one that currently services 10,000 students, or a hospital that will employ 5,000 plus patients, visitors, and volunteers. Instead, we are receiving 5.6 kilometers that are left over from Mississauga's LRT, giving the City of Mississauga a place to turn around. This is not one continuous train between two endpoints. Passengers must get off at Square One and transfer trains to continue. This LRT is not designed to link two cities. Instead, it provides a clear and immediate economic benefit to Mississauga, encouraging shopping at Square One, where they pumped millions of dollars into renovations. The City of Brampton's own LRT fact sheet projects ridership that doesn't justify this alignment. Peak hourly ridership of 2,700 is projected by 2031 with an LRT system that supports 4,800 passengers per hour in 2022, or 7,200 by 2031. This was confirmed in writing to me by CAO Marilyn Ball that a third car will not be necessary until, quote, well into the future, 2040 to be exact. Why are we building for a system that will reach maximum peak usage of 56% and potentially only 37% utilized during peak periods? As stated in the Toronto Star on July 3rd, and I quote, the population within the 2.3 kilometer stretch from Wellington to Charlotte is projected to grow by only 1,500 by 2008 and 2031, according to the 2014 LRT environmental analysis for both cities. And along the same stretch of LRT, according to the projections, employment growth will only see 200 more workers over that 23-year period, bringing the total employment base to just over 1,000. This compares to a projected 131,000 people working along the entire LRT corridor by 2031. So I ask, how are the claims, if you build it, they will come, supported by this analysis? I'm sure everyone has watched Field of Dreams. It's a good movie, but it's a fantasy. Build it and they will come. Nice story about a bunch of ghosts, like the phantom riders of the LRT from the downtown GO to Steeles Avenue. Lastly, I point to a July 2014 news article when talking about Scarborough LRT. Transportation Minister Stephen Del Duca is quoted to say, we don't want to just serve one area. We don't want to make sure that we're engaging. We want to make sure that we're not engaging in any unnecessary turf battles. So I ask this, why are the province and Metrolinx only planning to service one area, Mississauga? Why are our mayor, transport minister, and Metrolinx engaging and promoting in unnecessary turf battles rather than engaging and uniting our city? Instead of a turf battle, we need unity, a unified council and a unified city. As Mayor Jeffrey recently stated, quote, it's critical that we remember our ultimate goal, to make Brampton stronger. Brampton deserves this. I hope this council has the courage not to rush in to accept the current proposal just because it is being subsidized by the province and Metrolinx, because it is not fully funded. If the province and Metrolinx are committed to the big move, they will understand the need for this council to ensure it is the right solution for this community's needs and priorities. If not, then this never was an LRT designed for Brampton's needs. Make no mistake, this money is not a gift. This money comes from our gas tax dollars. This money comes from the potential sale of Hydro One. This is certainly not a gift. And for the record, I just want to state that there are a lot of delegates who are downstairs on the main floor watching this right now because we were stopped coming in at the registration desk. All delegates had to re-register and check in while these chambers filled up. I think delegates should have been given first priority. Thank you very much.
Our next delegation is Susan Crawford. Can you please be quiet? Can you please order? Order. Susan Crawford is our next speaker. Thank you very much. And then after that will be Parminder Grewal. Thank you, everybody. Is that for me? Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, council members. Since J. Paul went over his time, I'm going to promise to go under so we get back on track. My name is Susan Crawford. I was born in Brampton, and I was born at Peel Memorial. My kids were born here. 17 years ago, my husband and I decided to leave Toronto and open a law practice here in Brampton. And we chose Brampton because of all the business opportunities that it presented at the time. We settled in South Brampton on the Mississauga border, and in 2013 we had an opportunity to come downtown, and we chose that because we wanted to give our staff a better work-life balance. We wanted to give our staff the opportunity to be in the downtown core, and we wanted to be closer to our business community. And it's a decision that until tonight we had had no regrets about. 5 councillors on this council have publicly come out to say that they will vote no tonight because they prefer another route in Brampton for the LRT. But the reality is that a vote of no tonight is not a vote for a preferred route. It's a vote to make us start over again. 6 years we've come to this point. We're poised, we're ready to start the LRT, but some councillors want to go back in time and have another discussion about a route that hasn't been approved by the government. It hasn't had an environmental assessment, and you're asking us to do this in an environment where business is already struggling in the downtown core. We need to start this now. We need to have a unified council, and frankly, I think it's irresponsible to take a risk that this LRT is going to stop at Gateway, because when it does, I don't need to practice in downtown Brampton. Daniel doesn't need to sell his tea in downtown Brampton. Herman doesn't need to take his photos in downtown Brampton. You will kill our downtown core if we stop this project. And Metrolinx is not saying anything other than it's going to proceed to Gateway. So I'm urging and I'm imploring our council members to vote yes tonight so that we can start this process and we can have the economic growth that we need in downtown Brampton. So please vote yes tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Parminder Grewal.
Thank you, Mayor Jeffrey and members of council and staff for giving me the opportunity to share my opinion with the council and my fellow Bramptonians. My name is Parminder Grewal. I would like to start with that I support the approved Ontario Main light rail transit. Without an LRT in Brampton, we will see some of the following issues arise. Worsening traffic congestion will negatively impact Brampton's economy and impair the quality of life for citizens. By 2031, it is estimated that the transit ridership along the Ontario Main Street corridor will reach 35 million people annually, exceeding the carrying capacity of Brampton's Zoom BRT. If LRT stops at Gateway Terminal, then LRT is unlikely to be extended north in the future, including to Brampton-Caledon boundary. Ridership will exceed BRT capacity in future. A higher order of transit service of a BRT will still be needed, which is LRT. Now we have 2 options that are greatly debated in the public and in the council, that we have an option to have an LRT on surface or a tunnel option. If we go with the tunnel option, these are the cons. An additional cost of $380 million to be paid by Brampton, which will result in higher property taxes for Bramptonians. Cost could increase further depending on findings of additional studies. Longer construction time from 4 to 5.5 years. Alignment will effectively stop at Steeles Avenue, since province may not wait for tunnel studies to be completed 2 years or more. Therefore, timing for tunnel option is unknown, and there is a potential loss of provincial funding for the surface route north of Steeles Avenue, which will accumulate $380 million plus $190 million equals to $570 million. With an approved LRT option on surface LRT will reduce the travel time by Brampton. LRT will reduce the travel time by transit from Brampton Go to Port Credit Go. It will be fully funded by the province at capital construction cost of $1.6 billion. support development and intensification in downtown Brampton, as well as along the rest of the Ontario Main Street corridor. LRT is required to meet the transit ridership demand along the Ontario Main Street corridor, as bus rapid transit cannot meet this demand in Brampton, which is forecasted to grow to a population of 890,000 people and employment of 320,000 by 2041. Lowest cost and fully approved, funded by province for surface. Shorter construction alignment, 1 to 2 years of locally staged construction. LRT will help reduce congestion. Better transit means fewer cars, cleaner air. Now, if you look at that $570 million, if we go with the tunnel option, we can use that $570 million to extend the LRT, which on staff report on page 9, if you look, there are multiple options that we can work on, which could be Brampton go to Bourget Drive, to Sandalwood Parkway, or if you go to east on Queen Street, which will be all the way to 410, or Bramley City Center. That's the equivalence close to $570 million that we are going with the tunneling option. Now, once again, I would like to show my support for the approved option of Ontario Main LRT, and I hope the Council will unanimously support the decision as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next speaker is Devesh Mistry. Devesh Mistry is our next speaker. David Heimers, Daniel and Renata, Lewis, Karen McCallion, and then Simran Kamju. Is Devesh Mistry here? Come on in. Welcome.
Thank you to Council and to the members of the public and your worship. My name is Divyesh Mistry. I live in wards 9 and 10, and I'm here to express my support for the surface alignment of the Ontario Main LRT. I said a few, there's a lot of reasons here. So Brampton has an old heritage core, and normally heritage built form downtowns support public transit a lot better than other parts of the city. Frankly, that includes my own ward. We have a large modern arts facility downtown, the Rose. We also have a smaller one, which has been recently closed, which is the old Heritage Theatre. We have a downtown library. There are a lot of Canadian cities out there that don't have a downtown library. They tore their downtown library down, or they're now rebuilding them. Calgary, Halifax, to name a few. We have Gage Park, which is the best downtown, one of the best downtown parks in the GTA. We have 2 public squares, which is the Garden Square in front of the Rose, as well as the less used square in front of City Hall. I think one big advantage of taking the LRT straight up to the downtown GO is our downtown GO station is the only GO station on the planned Ontario Main LRT line that connects not only to rapid transit in the form of Zoom or Queen Street BRT or LRT, it connects to local transit, it connects to GO trains and buses, but it's the only station that connects to via intercity train services to Stratford, to London, to beyond. We could work with Orangeville to bring the Credit Valley Explorer to the downtown station. There's a plan for a high-speed rail line. It goes through our downtown. I expect council to lobby hard for a station. I think it would be a great addition to a downtown to connect to an LRT. Imagine the hundreds of people an LRT can carry compared to a Zoom bendy bus, or even compared to right now a lot of traffic is primarily single occupant cars. So imagine all those people patronizing all of our downtown businesses, our parks, our institutions, and events in our squares, and I think we have the formula for our downtown to succeed. I have some suggestions to council. If a surface alignment is approved, I feel if there's heritage structures in the downtown that's not designated, do it now. The strict ones, probably for stuff south of Wellington. I think the Main Street buildings should probably go where you can alter them inside, because we found there's evidence all over the place. San Francisco, Kitchener, even Detroit and Buffalo, which are very Rust Belty cities, have found that those older structures, like Main Street structures, are better. Small businesses want to locate there because they're cool. So there's a little known secret to intensification. I think a lot of people are worried that intensification will be massive towers like Square One. So Brampton's target under the Places to Grow Act is 200 jobs and people per hectare. Places to Grow suggests mid-rises. So things that are as tall as City Hall or St. Paul's United. There's also the geometry of transit. So this is concerned to alternatives. I really don't want an alternatives because would we ask drivers who want to go from the Rose to the courthouse to drive on Steeles onto McLaughlin or Kennedy to get to the courthouse? So why would we ask our transit riders to take an LRT line that'll go all the way around to get down or to go up? And concerns for rapid transit expansion. So it's not a zero-sum game. We're getting all-day GO service. They're doing continuous improvements. We're going to get a Queen Street line after Huron Ontario Main. And then long-term, we have a Huron Ontario extension up to Mayfield or Steeles. And Huron Ontario is our rapid transit spine in Peel. It's sort of our equivalent to the Young Subway, except it's an LRT, not a subway. But, we don't have a lot of north-south transit lines in the GTA, and we need more of them. So, my last point. So, I was reading a history book.
30 seconds.
Sorry. I was reading a history book in the Brampton and Four Corners Library. Brampton, an illustrated history written in 1974 by Helen Loverseed. And there was a trend I was noticing in how downtowners had reacted in the past. Maine had overhead electric wires because they wanted electricity. They built a hydro dam. We had 2 railway lines serve our core, and they were so proud of our first street lights. So I think the surface alignment is best because we have to understand that past Bramptonians wouldn't want us to stay the same because Brampton has always stood for progress.
Thank you. Thank you very much. David Heimers. David Heimers. Welcome.
Hey, good evening. My name is David Heimers. I'm the chair of council for St. Paul's United Church, which is directly across the street from City Hall. St. Paul's has been located on Main Street since 1885 and is very active in the community of downtown Brampton. The history of St. Paul's is the history of our city. We are proud to have helped build Brampton into the strong, diverse, and wonderful city that it is today. In addition to holding church services, we host organizations and groups for meetings, events, concerts, provide an emergency food cupboard for those in need, and much, much more. All Bramptonians are always welcome at St. Paul's. St. Paul's also owns a historic Boyle House, which is leased out to commercial tenants. Given that our building was constructed in 1885, and as all buildings age, they require capital upgrades and maintenance. I am pleased to report that St. Paul's has taken this seriously. And over the last decade, we have invested a significant amount of money into the structure of our building, including the repointing of the front of our church, tower with new grout between the stones, a complete refurbishment of the sanctuary ceiling, and slate roof replacement in the oldest portions. While there will always be more to do, we want everyone to know that our members have worked hard to maintain one of Brampton's most historic buildings. St. Paul's would like to take this opportunity to thank the mayor, city councilors, and Metrolinx for your endeavor to provide an effective public transportation system that will serve the people of Brampton, especially those who rely on public transportation. We understand that tonight's decision will be important for the future of Brampton and our downtown. We appreciate the dedication and efforts everyone is contributing to this part of the process. I am here to present concerns that some members of our congregation have raised regarding the proposed LRT curbside route in front of the historic St. Paul's Church building. I'm also here to outline the expectations of our church. While some members of our congregation have concerns, tonight we'll have also heard from members who support the project. St. Paul's welcomes and respects the views of all of our members. All members of St. Paul's, no matter what their view of the LRT, love Brampton and are very proud to call it home. With respect to the concerns raised, some members are worried about the parking accommodations on Main Street in front of the church for wedding and funeral vehicles. Curbside tracks would make it more difficult for the loading and unloading of these vehicles in a safe and timely fashion. We do understand that there are currently some limited periods when Main Street is closed for special events and festivals. In addition to these two mentioned items, there will be a loss of street parking on Sunday during service time. There's also worry about the noise and vibrations both during and after construction, and what impact this might have on the historic building structure and activities within the church. If tonight's meeting results in the decision to proceed with the LRT route as proposed, St. Paul's United Church will be looking for the following: that these concerns and others that may arise are heard and addressed. 2, we will require open dialogue, timely collaborative problem-solving meetings, and proactive communications with the professional staff of the City of Brampton, Metrolinx, and our St. Paul's team prior to, during, and after construction of the LRT. At these meetings, we would need to work with civil engineers, architects, water management, transportation consultants, the guy driving the food truck, project managers, and other professionals who have experience with historic buildings. Point 3, given that our church hosts events and meetings during the week, we would expect a timely and detailed construction schedule, which describes on a weekly basis the nature of the work taking place on Main Street, so that we can inform our members and visitors. Well, as a church, we have faith. We can't have construction schedule mysteries. 4, we would need the project team to fully follow all recommendations provided in the environmental project report on page 37 of the HMLRT Preliminary Design Transit Project Assessment Process, TPAP, Phase Cultural Report. It states, potential vibration impacts during the construction phase of this project requiring pre-construction building condition surveys and monitoring activities. St. Paul's would expect the most sophisticated digital assessment and monitoring equipment to be brought to our church before, during, and after construction.
You have 30 seconds.
We expect that the best practices of transit construction that are used around the world will be used in Brampton. We would need to work with staff to develop a better transportation plan for John Street that would investigate using it for vehicle parking for church services, weddings, and funerals. As is done with other transportation projects in the province of Ontario, in the event that there is any building deterioration, we would be looking for financial restitution. In the spirit of open communication, St. Paul's will be forwarding information about tonight's meeting to our congregation and future LRT developments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So I'm just going to tell everybody how many, we've got a few speakers left, and we're going to stop when we get to our 30th delegate so that we can have a 15-minute break, because we'll have been at this for almost 2.5 hours. So our last speaker will be Christopher Moon, but we're going through Daniel and Renata Lewis, Karen McCallion, Simran Kamjoy, Paul Willoughby, and Christopher Moon will be our last speaker before the 15-minute break. Welcome.
Thank you for having us, Madam Mayor and councillors and Bramptonians.
Thank you.
I'm just here, first off, to state that I 100% support the LRT right through Main Street. And I'm going to start off with addressing a question that was asked to me by Councillor Spraveri. You said, Daniel, do you think someone from Port Credit would get on an LRT and come to Brampton for a cup of tea? My answer was yes, and still is yes, but I think that the question was irrelevant. The real question is, would they come to Brampton for tea and cupcakes, photography and videography services, accounting and banking, theater and live performances at the Rose, hair services at CB Square, historic museum tours, a stroll through Gage Park? If the answer is no, then I restate the question to you, sir. Why not? And if the answer is yes, then the LRT is starting to look more and more necessary. You say that having construction disrupts our regular business flow, and it could be detrimental to most businesses during this 4 to 5 year span. And I agree, we're going to go through some hard times. You call it risks. I say resilience. What are we made out of? We're businesses. Every single day is a risk. Every single day. Businesses are closing up right now. Every 6 months, there's businesses closing up without an LRT system. So I don't think that that's the case, simply because there's no traffic downtown. A lady mentioned the Ghost Phantom LRT. The Ghost is 5 o'clock p.m. in downtown Brampton. That's the real Ghosts. Nothing is built without sacrifice, and we all understand that. Our country wasn't built without sacrifice, and the LRT wouldn't be built without sacrifice. Brampton has not been built without sacrifice. So we're going to go through it, but I think we could all work together, unify, and get through it. I think we can do that. You say it will eliminate parking. Parking for who? Customers? Clients? That's definitely not the case. The majority of vehicles parked on Main Street are the business owners like myself. who, by the way, are often ticketed $100 fines for loading inventory into our stores. Last week, Chad, you got one too? Yeah. And my brother. We find ourselves having to pay some of our customers' tickets just so they're not discouraged about our downtown Brampton. That means a tea costs $22 after the customer's ticket. And we're paying it just so, still come back to downtown. Don't worry about it. We got it this time. We're vending. We're fighting for Brampton. So it's not a matter of parking, because right now the parking is just us. These are not people who are coming, parking, and spending money and time in downtown. That's not the case. And let's not pretend that it is. We find ourselves having to pay for our tickets because they're discouraged from downtown Brampton. They're getting hit with hefty fines. So forget about the parking. Just pull it. We'll figure something out. I'm sure we can. Investments and redevelopment. Please don't hear me this evening as Daniel, the costume-wearing tea guy. Hear me as Daniel, an investor who works in downtown Brampton every single day, rain or shine, customer or no customer. I've lived in Brampton for 25 years and only heard of downtown Brampton when I started my business. I've never heard anything about downtown Brampton. I never heard of festivals. I never heard of any shops. And I've lived here all my life. Only when I got involved with the Brampton Board of Trade did I find out we had a downtown, coming from a Bramptonian. I could only imagine the surrounding cities and what they think. But here's my observation of Brampton in the 1.5 years that I have been operating in downtown Brampton. The Cook-Up, Optical for You, Rebirth Clothing, Sun Life Financial, Green Cup Roastery, J. Deco Flower Decor, DK Wireless. What do all these businesses have in common? They don't exist anymore. They've closed down. They've closed down. They've closed down. That's not because of construction to an LRT system. That's because there's nobody coming down here. That's just the truth. And we have to look at the facts. Nobody's coming down here and spending time in downtown. We have great businesses, great people behind them, great products, but nobody is spending their time in downtown Brampton. So you ask me if getting an LRT is going to change that? I love to believe so. It's time for change, real change, not the term change. It's tangible change that we need, and the LRT system is that. No more discussions, let's just do it. I feel like I was in the room with Nike when they came up with that. Just do it. Let's just do it. Let's do it. Let's work together and make Brampton blossom. Are we not the Flower City? Yeah! We're the Flower City. Mississauga is not advancing because they've implemented an LRT transit system. They're advancing because they are a forward-thinking city who is unified, so let's be the same. Thank you.
Come on up. Welcome.
Madam Mayor and Council.
Welcome.
But more importantly, my citizens, it is so hard to follow Daniel. It really is.
You're using your time. Your hug just cost 11 seconds.
With all due respect, I hope that this gentleman runs for office. I apologize if at times my back is to council, because I actually am going to really want to speak to my fellow citizens. Flying off the hip here, I was in my track pants at 6:15. I hadn't heard back from the city office, so I didn't think that I was going to speak. I'm here because I absolutely love Brampton, like absolutely everybody in this room. My parents came off a boat in the early 70s from Ireland with 3 toddlers. We arrived here when Brampton was less than 30,000 people, and when my dad was trying to set up shop, he rented a little house on Main Street. It was the first place I knew. I've grown up here. I'm still here, and I'm proud to be here. And I have 2 children in the city, and we love our home. Now, I do live in downtown Brampton, but I'm not here for my neighborhood. I'm here for my community, because I have seen the efforts and lack of efforts and lack of collaboration that have led Brampton to go like this, up and down. I have seen amazing vendors like Daniel put their blood and sweat and tears into building their businesses only because they can no longer pay their staff or their overhead collapse. However, guys, and this is of all due respect to our businesses in downtown Brampton, because I love them. My little son loves his ice cream store. My big son loves the bike store. We have got to think outside the box. Brampton, downtown Brampton, is our box. But we have a much, much bigger community to think of. And where are we going to put our LRT? I want it 110%, but I want it where it's going to benefit not just the people in the room, or our teenagers, or our kids that are off to college or university, but our grandchildren and our grandchildren's grandchildren. And that is my issue today with all of you. Many faces here. We have many new faces. And I can proudly say that I am behind a lot of the new faces. I want to change, leadership, courage, and vision. Not a Band-Aid solution based on passions or misleading short-term opportunities, but an opportunity to build this community and take us well ahead of Mississauga. Since we're not here for Mississauga, we are here for Brampton. Please, when we look to our neighbors in Mississauga, and guys, they have the courage to put a city hall in a parking lot of a shopping center. Why do we not have the courage to take some of our less desirable areas where we have the physical space to put in our convention centers, to move our railway system, our railway stop and go, to put in our sports centers, to put in our universities, to get things going, to feed into our core, rather than say our core is us. Our core, we are so much more than just our core. We have to think to the future. And this is what I say to all of you. Let's come together, guys. It's not about not wanting this LRT, but we want it in the right place. So we have the growth. We have the growth potential for all of us and for future generations of Brampton. And that's, I guess, what I have to say. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Simran. So we have 3 more speakers before our break. Simran, Mr. Willoughby, Christopher Moon will be, and then we'll be having a 15-minute break. Welcome.
I want to thank you guys for letting me speak, council members, Madam Mayor. But before I say anything, we're Snapchatting this live, so hello. Anyhow, I don't have a lot to say, but I want to start with saying we have to think about the future. But before I go, I got some good news. 935 people have signed up as a petition for LRT Pro. They want the LRT on the main street. Round of applause for that. So I'm not going to be as charming as Daniel, but I'll try to make some points. I studied in Toronto, and I came here and I felt like the city was dead. I felt like the downtown was dead. And then I later found out all these things of why it is. And I'm tired of us saying no. I'm tired of us saying no to not applying to a university, because who the hell doesn't have a university? Pardon my language. I'm tired of us saying no to Pan Am Games. Why would we say no? I don't want us to say no to this. It's going to be an opportunity that can transform the city for the next 50 years, not the next 5 or 10. And we have to think beyond the 5 or 10. We have to think about when we are 40, 45. You do.
Be patient. He's young. Okay.
And I'd like to imagine we'd rather carry bus passes, unlimited bus passes, rather than pay insurance on cars, because I can't afford it, right? I would like a good transportation infrastructure system so I can take the bus, I can take the car, because when I was in Toronto, that's all I did. I didn't need the car. And so we have to think about 60% of the population that's under the age of 34 in this city that potentially can't afford the car. And remember, this is just step 1. This is just step 1, guys. This will allow us to maybe get a university. And when we get a university, we will have a re-energized downtown. The LRT will re-energize the downtown. And this is just step 1 line, and we'll get one later on somewhere. And hopefully you guys are still in council to vote for that one too. And we get one on Queen, we get one everywhere in Brampton, so I don't need to drive my car because I hate driving my car. It's so expensive. So before you vote today, please think of this. Think of the 60% of the population that's below the age of 34. That's going to be 45, 50. Later on, who's going to be using this LRT? Think of a re-energized Brampton. Think of a university. Think of us as not being a suburb of Toronto. Think of us as a standalone city with a lot of businesses. We're not just old people want to come live here because it's a suburb, because young people want to live here. That's all I have to say. So before you vote today, I invite you to be visionaries for the city of Brampton. So be a visionary and vote for yes. Because we will get all the other routes. We will. But this is just step one. We have to think 30 years, 40 years down the road. Please don't think 5 years down the road. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Paul Willoughby. Mr. Willoughby. Is Mr. Willoughby here? Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, councillors, senior staff, ladies and gentlemen. I am Paul Willoughby, a 36-year resident of Brampton. I am opposed to the Main Street LRT, but I'm not opposed to the LRT. Can I have quiet, please, gentlemen? Please. I was quiet when people who were that you like were talking. So can I please have quiet?
Please, everybody, can we have some silence, some respect for our delegate?
Can I have a little extra time now, Madam Mayor? Maybe 30 seconds?
Just.
I won't need it because this is only 2-3 minutes
okay.
anyway.
Keep going.
If the LRT comes, with it comes intensification, which is provincial government policy. No, great, we get intensification. But the Main Street route offers Mississauga a tremendous amount. When you drive through Mississauga, you see all that vacant land. They are going to get the lion's share of the intensification and the increase in assessment. What are we going to get? We're going to tear down the William Davis courthouse to get some more intensification. There's a little bit down there. We're going to get a little bit, I understand now, because they're going to do something with the Etobicoke Creek. We're going to get a little bit now, Brampton Mall. But what do we do through the Main Street, up through Main Street? We've got a heritage district. We've got all those houses. What are we going to do? We're going to start putting McDonald's and that on the front lawns of some of those, where those people have big houses? Is that going to be our intensification? We can't touch that. What are we going to do in the district, down in the business district? Those are very old buildings, most of them 1800s. Are they going to stand intensification? Are they going to stand you to build another 2-3 layers on top of them? Most of them have damaged basements already, foundations, due to years and years and years of flooding. I know I keep being told, oh, there's engineers. What I'm afraid of is when they start building this LRT, the engineers are going to come in and say, oh yeah, that old building's condemned, that one's condemned, that one's condemned. And we're going to lose our beautiful old downtown. I don't want to see that gone. What has Mississauga got as a downtown? Their downtown, yeah, their city hall. Their city hall is in a parking lot of a shopping center. Where's ours? Our city hall is on a beautiful main street. I mean, you've got a beautiful building right next door. Very unique architecture, right to the north. You know, you've got a beautiful place for your city hall. And so why ruin it? You know, I just feel that there's a good chance you put the LRT up, there's going to be a lot of damage, we're going to lose those buildings. Then you'll be able to build, yeah, it's going to look terrible, I feel, if we get a lot of brand new stuff stuck in there. And we're also been told, I've also heard lately that the LRT is going to have to be operated with overhead wires. It's not going to be battery operated from Nanwood, which I was led to believe. And so are we going to go back to overhead wires in the downtown? We got rid of them several years ago. Are we going to be back with overhead wires attached to buildings? Isn't that going to look nice? Isn't that a nice streetscape to see overhead wires back again? And another thing, if they got to put that in, Metrolinx told me in a meeting I was at that they would not require a transformer station in Gage Park because they were going to be battery operated. Does that mean that they are now going to put a transformer station back in Gage Park? Isn't that going to be wonderful? Great really great for wedding parties from Alderley to come down and have their pictures taken in front of the new transformer station, if it happens. And, you know, what's that going to do to Gage Park, having that thing stuck? Gage Park is beautiful. And why are we doing this?
You've got 30
And
seconds left.
what's going to happen to parades? What's going to happen to the market on Main Street? I know people keep telling me, oh, you can move it. I had a guy tell me today, put the parade over on Kennedy Road. Well, it doesn't have the atmosphere that Main Street has. So, like, why are we ruining these things? That we didn't have a parade for years. We finally have a parade again. Now, what are we going to do? Lose it again?
Could you summarize, Mr. Willoughby?
Okay, I'm going to finish up. The previous city council listened to us. Listened to the concerns of its citizens. They listened to us back in September, and they said no to the Main Street LRT. And at that time, they did not have money on the table, which they do now.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Our last speaker before the break is Mr. Moon. Okay. Thank you, guys. Just we're going to remind everybody this is our last speaker before we have a break of 15 minutes, and then we'll be coming back, okay?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Being the last person before the seventh inning stretch, I'll try and be brief. There seems to be a lot of people saying that this is the only LRT or no LRT. Frankly, the minister did not say that. He invited Brampton to put it where you want to put it, just don't get into protracted negotiations. That is what was said. This is not an if, it's just where it goes. The question is, where do we get it put where we get the best outcome for Brampton? The value to downtown will be having LRT to the GO station. If LRT comes to the GO station, all of the development opportunities that exist in downtown are here. People can get to downtown, and the only development opportunities realistically are from City Hall northward. So that gets served with the LRT coming to the GO station, whether it goes up Main Street or however it gets there. Folks, we have it. We'll get the downtown we want. It doesn't have to go up Main Street to get there. We also know that going up Main Street is going to cause significant damage to the ambience of the area, and it's going to cause intensification. What that means is apartment buildings on the houses on Main Street. Well, I think it's been explained by others that we'd like to get the development, but let's get development where it really works for Brampton. The Queen Street corridor is where Brampton has in its own planning said, we want to build out. I stood in front of this council in 1996 and talked about the Queen Street corridor. Council bought the vision, overruled their own staff, and said, we're going to build a Queen Street corridor. Well, I suggest to you that we need to ensure that that's where we're going to get the best near-term bang for our buck, is developing on Queen Street in the hospital precinct. The area needs redevelopment. It's good, ripe for redevelopment. The hospital's going to spur redevelopment. If LRT assists with development, we should get an LRT station at the hospital area. Yes, bring it to downtown, but we should have one there too, because that's where we're going to get the value, not in trying to develop downtown. Council Sprovieri quite rightly pointed out that developers are not banging on the door seeking rezoning permits for downtown to put in new commercial, but they sure will be out there, and if we can help it along with the LRT, we're going to generate assessment that'll pay whatever extra it costs to divert it around that area. Council in November 2013 said, stop it at Steeles till we figure out where we're going to put it, where it makes the best value for Brampton, and asked staff to do an alternative study. They came back in September 2014.
said exactly the same thing again in a unanimous vote, except for the mayor. Staff then did the alternative study, presented it 2 weeks ago, although I know it's been ready since last September. Why it's thrust on us with 2 weeks' notice is completely inappropriate. That study did study the alternative routes. The 2014 resolution asked staff to specifically look at the Queens of the Valley Lands Peel Memorial Hospital route. They came back with a letter from the Conservation Authority saying, can't do that route, so they didn't even study it further. Well, I've looked at that letter, and you have a copy of it, councillors. That letter says the Conservation Authority was asked by the city to send a letter so that they could knock out that route. That's what your own staff did, as far as a study. I'm afraid that they did not honor the trust that you conferred upon them at that time, and so what they've been left with is present you two choices: the cheapest route and the most expensive route, knowing that you're not going to go for the most expensive route, so their desired route, the cheapest, will win. Very simple, classic negotiating tactic, and very manipulative. I suggest to you, councillors, that you should go back to where you were, stop and take a breath, exactly what you've done so far. The only approved route by you as a council twice is a route that stops at Steeles Avenue. And you're supposed to have an opportunity to look at other routes on an unbiased basis, and you've never had it. And I think that you should go back and say, do what we were supposed to do 2 years ago, get it done, and frankly, I'm sorry to have to say it, but I think you should have someone other than your own staff do it because they're far too invested in the current route. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you done? Thank you very much. We're at 9:52 right now. We're going to take a 15-minute break. If you go downstairs and you might lose your spot if you want to stay in these council chambers, so 15 minutes is the break, and we'll have a recess and we'll be back in 15 minutes.
Wow.